Oh, good morning, Smite fans, and happy Saturday for all of you out there. It's another day of the Smite Challenger Circuit over in the European region. Yesterday, we crowned our first 4 teams that made it into the EU-SCC, and today we're going to figure out what those last 2 are going to be. But I'm unable to do this job alone. I got Mifflin over here to help me out for our very first set of the day. We're going to have ZINEDINE taking on THUNDERHEAD to start things out, and then we've got plenty of action to round out the remainder of our day.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. We get to see this is the last of it, right? The last of the European bracket. So everyone gets to go home. That's the part I'm excited for because I'm here to spread hatred and negativity. But also we get to promote some people, and I guess that's cool too.
Well, even though you might spread the hatred and negativity, we do have peace and love, at least in this bracket, to bring things back here into the positive light. ZINEDINE versus THUNDERHEAD will be our first matchup. We'll have peace and love just F6 later on. And you can see how the bracket is going to be panning out for the remainder here. Winner of this set will move on to face the Radical Rodents. Winner of our next set will move on to face Ogie Bogies for those last 2 spots over in the EU-SCC. To round things out, this all started way back last week when we kicked things off. We had 16 teams fighting for those spots. 4 of them have made it, and now it's our final 2 here. We saw ZINEDINE and we saw THUNDERHEAD even yesterday, specifically on the THUNDERHEAD roster. But for ZINEDINE, it's been a little while since we've gotten to see these guys. If you forgot the names on that roster, Ugly One, French Emperor, Picarinu, Calvin, and Skills to round out the 5 men on that roster. A little bit of a shaky start for them as far as coming up through the losers bracket has been, but still some powerful names on that team. Specifically, kind of Picarinu and Calvin are the ones that have been standing out here amongst the EU-SCC.
Yeah, I agree, but here's a little tidbit for you, J-Mac. Do you know who the French Emperor was in history?
Do not.
Yeah, well, me either.
Well, there we go. That's a history fact that neither of us know, so hopefully somebody out there can give us a little tidbit of information as to who the French Emperor in history was. But as far as the French Emperor goes...
Oh. It was Napoleon.
Napoleon, okay. There you go. You got me there. As far as the French Emperor in Smite, that's the jungler here on the side of ZINEDINE. A great pop-off performance to kind of start things out for these teams. Obviously, way earlier on into the week. Last week is when we first really got to see these guys. But now we're moving here into the losers bracket where this is the do-or-die situation. This time, you lose these sets, and you're done.
You do, and, well, this is a squad that struggled last time we saw them. Not to split, I mean, well, they lost. They're in the losers bracket, right? But they have got some strong pieces that I think they can really start to play through. As you said, you can lean on some of these more veteran talent pieces like Picarino, like Calvin. Specifically, I think Calvin has got to step up for this squad because he was the shining ray of hope for me. I love the initiations that we were seeing from the Fenrir. I love the ability and the willingness to continually go in. His KDA wasn't exactly the most impressive, but it really was that facilitator role. I believe it was like game 2. He goes like 0-4. I'm thinking to myself, well, he just can't give up. Like, you can't slow down despite not hitting pay dirt. Mans did not. He kept going, went into a tier 2 tower, and picked up a kill for his squad. And then I think the French Emperor, sure, you can have some fun with his name, but also you're not going to have so much fun playing against him. This guy is getting active on the map very early on picks that I would not traditionally associate with early aggression. The Nemesis is out there getting involved at like wave 2. The Bastet's getting involved early on as well. I'm really excited to see how this team has improved since the last time we've seen them.
Yeah, Nemesis is kind of one of those sneaky picks that has been kind of finding her way. It was kind of niche when we were in the SPL play-ins. Only a couple of players are picking that one out, but we've been seeing a little bit more of Nemesis as these weeks have been going on. I'm very interested to see if we'll see even more as the SCC continues through, maybe even seeing signs of hope leading over into the SPL. But they do have to go up against THUNDERHEAD, who had an unfortunate loss to Beltslap yesterday, and it was not particularly a close matchup in that sense, but Beltslap is made up of some of the top veteran talent amongst the SEC. But even still with THUNDERHEAD, I mean, Mecha, Black, Ray Shadow, Marcus, Itzmark, and Chekio to round out this roster. Coming through, into day 2 of their event there, they had to make a few roster swap-ups here, some role changes. They're still able to at least find some shimmering rays of hope out with this squad.
If we're going to evaluate just like raw name recognition and tenure within competitive Smite, I would argue that THUNDERHEAD has got a pretty significant advantage over ZZ. They've been playing for a very long time. A lot of these guys have been playing together for a very long time as well, and it's already been established. We saw it in their set against Beltslap. We've seen it throughout the last couple of weeks. This is a team that is very firm in their identity. They know exactly what it is, the style of drafts they want to play, and it's just whether or not they're able to execute on it and whether or not they can stack up against some of that top tier talent. I know that it wasn't particularly close with Beltslap, but I think there were a couple of moments where games were in question, where there were moments where maybe Thunderhead would have been able to turn things around, and I'm not sure you could say the same of every other team in this bracket. Belt Slap is just that incredible that they do make the majority of their games look a little bit more so one-sided. So I think that set in particular, not a great indication of what Thunderhead is really capable of.
Yeah, and we've been seeing a big change-up as far as the way that the style of game is played here in the EUSCC. A lot more of that NA style of very early aggression. We'll see how that works for both these teams here. Picks and bans for game number 1 between Thunderhead and ZINEDINE ZIDANE. We saw the Nemesis be a heavy priority with ZZ previously in their matchups. Thunderhead have really been trying to make sure that they can get their dual lane specifically, just because Mark moving out of the mid lane and over into the support role now, want to make sure that you get something comfortable for him. But Mark seems to have shown at least some decent flexibility between his god pool. I mean, he said whenever he was playing at mid is a great god to transition to the support role. Sure, your build is a little bit different. Playstyle, though, seems to be relatively the same.
Yeah, but, less tanky. Maybe mostly the same, like you're going to drop circle protection onto an objective, but maybe not initiating all the fights for yourself. Yeah, but you're right to say that there is mechanical transitive skill. What is it called in math? Transitive value?
Property?
Yeah, there you go. That's the one. I dropped out of college. Got to stop saying that out
A
loud.
equals B, B equals C, then A equals C. That's the transitive property.
Sure.
That's it. That's just what I remember. That's like the only of those ones that I remember from like high school algebra, I think.
That's high school algebra?
Actually, I think it may have even been geometry that I learned
really
that.
blowing
I can't
myself
remember.
up, man.
That was a long time ago for me here, but first bands coming out are going to be Tiamat, Amaterasu, and Gilgamesh. Fenrir and Erlong Shen on the side for ZZ, and then they'll round it out with a Kleena. Interesting enough, Kleena has been talked about widely amongst us, amongst the players, as this very hyper burst damage god, great for burning out objectives, but we've never really seen a whole lot of priority towards this pick. It's kind of been maybe one here, maybe one player really likes this one in particular. I know over on the NA side, we've seen a couple of junglers really prefer that, like Magic Feet, but getting a ban here kind of first out, especially when gods like Bastet are still open?
Yeah, I think Kleena is worthy of a ban. Her strength is certainly there, and she's got decent flex potential as well. Doesn't necessarily have to go into the jungle, could go into the soul lane, has phenomenal pressure towards these neutral objectives, so I'm not overly concerned with the Kleena ban. If you don't want to play against it, makes sense to me. But, as you said, Bastet's still available. Somehow gets glossed over here yet again. I was getting ready, I was gearing up to talk about how Bastet's got a ranged Fenrir ultimate and see how I kind of bought a little bit of time, because I knew it was going to come eventually. Bastet locked in for Thunderhead now, and she's got a ranged Fenrir ultimate. She'll pick you up, drag you to wherever she shot the ultimate off initially from, and it's just so safe in these late game team fights. It's really good in siege defense and siege offense situations, because you can just go for these low risk, incredibly high reward plays. She's got great flex potential generally when we do see her get picked up. Recent soul lane, but can certainly still perform in that jungle role, has great scaling come late game, and up against targets like Izanami, like Jormungandr, if it's going to be the European style where they just go all damage and no defense, has a lot of really high burst potential, can shut down these picks that before they can get their safety off. Izanami's stealth leap, Jormungandr's like world serpent giant jump ultimate.
It's honestly kind of a shame that Jormungandr can't be moved, because it would be really funny to see this giant serpent just being pulled back by the cat. Unfortunately, we don't get to see anything like that. But it is going to be Bellona, Bastet, Horus to start out for the top 3 of Thunderhead. ZZ go with the Kabrak and Izanami Jormungandr. They have an Agni and an Olorun and Thor Thoth. So once again, we're seeing this Thor band sneak its way into here. This time, though, it is up against the French Emperor, not going to allow him to pick up Thor. Instead, after all these bans have come through, with the Agni and Thoth being those top 2 mage bans, again, surprising we're seeing them make it so far into the draft, it's going to be Zeus to start that out for the mid lane pick.
If Zeus is your consolation prize, I mean, maybe you just aim for second in the future, right? Because that is not bad whatsoever. Does struggle a bit against the die potential that we're already seeing from Thunderhead. Zeus, a traditionally immobile mage, does now get 20% additional movement speed and attack speed at the first tier of his second ability, but probably won't do a whole lot when Horus, Bastet, and Bellona are running you down in these team fights. Was surprised to see the Scylla get locked in. There's not a whole lot of CC lockdown outside of Horus right now to set up for that I'm a Monster combo, but up against some of these less mobile targets, even Kabrakan has to root himself in place, makes it very easy to find those ultimates. I like Thunderhead's draft. I just gotta think that there were maybe a couple other picks that were a little bit higher priority. Why not like a Merlin or something along those lines? That would really help out your objective burn as well.
Well, this is something that Marcus did play yesterday against Belt Slap. Did have some success, a couple of big picks and big ultimates in the early stages of the game. But unfortunately, they were going up against Belt Slap, one of the most tenured teams in the EU SCC kind of level of play here and in that region. So didn't really show what he's capable of at the later stages of the game. But going up here against the Zeus, I mean, it's going to be some decent safe clear. When you're up against the Zeus, you never want to have to play a god that does just walk up into the wave to have to clear. Scylla, really a good god at being able to stay a little bit further away from that target.
She can just throw out the Sentinel into your own tower, step up, drop Crush on wave, teleport back if you're worried about it. Maybe not going to be the case this time, though, because Gravity Surge from Wheelish makes that super hard to do.
And it wasn't Wheelish last pick. Thunderhead versus ZINEDINE ZIDANE, or ZZ, whichever way you want to refer to him, here in game number 1. It's J-Mac, Mifflin, and Doug bringing the action of our first set of the day on the losers bracket for the EU SCC region. Winner of this team moves on for their last chance to make it into the SCC. Loser, they go home. No prize for them, no consolation this time around. And it will just be Ray Shadow here on the Bastet. With that Bologna locked in, no surprises there. A very kind of more standardized draft that we've been seeing at EU. They've really been loving this this Horus over into the support role. We've been seeing a huge rise in that. And then even seeing the Wheelish kind of as a last pick. Initially, I thought that maybe this was going to be the Cabrakan jungle that's become very popular. But now with that Wheelish, as you highlighted up, maybe just kind of to counteract against Marcus specifically.
Yeah, Marcus going to struggle. Chekio as well. Ray Shadow. I mean, there are plenty of targets for Gravity Surge here. Ray Shadow going to give you 2 opportunities once he uses his own leap. And then, you know, Chekio has to go up into the air and hover for a little while. Doesn't have the instant leap like we see from the majority of hunters. So I think Wheelish, a very strong pick, has great early game presence. Will be able to synergize very well with some of these more early aggressive lanes. ZZ should have complete dominance in the duo lane, unless Calvin falls or loses out on the majority of his HP bar early on.
They hit level 2 first on the side of ZZ, and they're going to go aggressive onto its mark. Tremors come through, and you may as well be stuck in there for quite some time. And where Calvin was as far as health is concerned, Mark gets even lower on this Horus, but he'll be fine for now. Made it to that tier 1 tower. And look at this potential early rotation by the mid. It seems that they are just going for the Oracle Harpies as of now, but a very early rotation through. And we saw this yesterday at Thunderhead where I was wondering, man, why do they get to lane so much later than their opponents as far as, you know, the mid 2v2 is concerned? Well, we got a nice little highlight there. They actually went from speed to the back Harpy camps to red. And now a fight over to the blue. Skills in danger, will leap away. Ray Shadow, though, caught him on the teleport out. Skills goes down. First blood goes the way of Thunderhead. And Mark wants to make it 2, but it won't happen this time.
ZZ cannot be happy with how that one pans out. I mean, I said it. I didn't mince words. They should have unmitigated pressure in the long lane, but an early rotation from the Ray Shadow is going to put a large stopper on their ability, ZZ's that is, to execute that pressure, to leverage it, to create the space, to allow this Wheelish, the French Emperor, to start rotating over towards this lane. Luckily for ZZ, during that time, while Thunderhead was ganking out the duo, French Emperor was at least able to steal away both back camps on the right side of the map, so he's not sacrificing too much farm in comparison to Bastet. Maybe Ray Shadow's got 200-300 gold over his opposition just thanks to that first blood bounty, but that's it.
Big ricochet onto Calvin, a dive bomb in by Chekio, but not much further follow-up. Minions are blocking those last few autos that were needed to take down the support. Playing with fire here on the side of ZZ. Calvin, I wouldn't even back there with how many times this man that we've been seeing these crazy triple bounce ricochets. I don't think anywhere inside the tower is safe.
Just such unfortunate timing for Calvin as well. Purple buff invade nearly successful, but Skills gets to walk up and just very easily toss out his own shadow and pick that one up for himself. And that's massive for Skills. Not only does he get the purple buff, but he doesn't have to split it with his support. It's not great for Calvin because he doesn't get any of the farm, but this Izanami has been losing out on a fair bit of the neutral. Hasn't really gone for these Harpies. The left side camps have been going over to Thunderhead as well. So that's going to keep Izanami afloat and likely equalize that lane a fair deal. Maybe we see Calvin, considering the lane has just not gone well for him so far, decide to leave, go play in that mid 3v3. Could work out. Going to be hard for a Cabrakan to close gap on Scylla, but if that leap gets forced, it's pretty easy to lock her down.
We'll see the support still sticking by on this left-hand side, at least for now. It seems that we've been seeing a lot more rotations out of these supports. Once that first, rotation of the obelisk starts coming through, you kind of make sure you get your Naga camp pressure, and then you go out and try and get those mids. But for now, French Emperor waiting in the wings on this left side, but not going to elect to go in up against Chekio and Mark. And Skills, even despite dying first, does have a very slight XP lead, hit level 4 before Czechia was able to. Whether that was just the extra experience he got from hitting that purple camp by himself, or maybe something more. Ray Shadow tosses out the ult, but Skills will use that fadeaway and get out of range just in time.
Yeah, he also had the beads still available, but I like the play from Ray Shadow. Very often we see in these slower-paced games, teams say, well, I've got this great CC ultimate, but I'm not going to use it because I know they've got beads left. Someone's got to force it.
Calvin's going to need a lot of extra help here. Dive bomb in by Czechia. One more auto will seal the deal. Put a second one up now for Thunderhead. And Skills will be able to make it out just fine. Ricochet's down. French Emperor, though. And Ray Shadow caught out. I'm a monster just off the mark. Picarino will not have that detonate. Not enough damage to kill out either Marcus or Ray Shadow yet.
No, not just yet, but good damage output immediately. We got to see the return damage from Marcus, and Crush is swinging. I think Picarino had used the detonate a little bit early in that engagement because he had 3 charges on Marcus towards the tail end, but never does use the detonate there. So good trade for Thunderhead in the HP department. We'll see if they can win out in the blue buff department.
It's going to be Ugly One using that World Serpent to get as far as they can. Ray Shadow thought maybe they'd go for the chase out, but with that straying over towards the left side of the map here by Ugly One, he will be able to get away. A blue buff invade does go successfully to Ugly One, so they are able to steal that one out. And their blue buff, though, coming up means it's a nice invade for Ray Shadow and Mecha Black.
It is. Look at the gold at the top of the screen, though, J-Mac. It's 2-0 for Thunderhead, first blood bounty, no return kills on the board. But gold largely equalized, and at times even straying in favor of ZZ. That macro farm really is favoring the Chaos team. I mean, even in the experience, that is nothing, man. There has been no real leverage. There's been no space created. Thunderhead, they've got a couple of kills, and that's it.
I mean, even kind of looking back, when a first blood goes down, there's not anything up. You know, there's no gold fury to take. Maybe there is a kill to take on the Mecha Black. A lot of damage. Needs a little bit more here. French Emperor dives in. Bludgeon deals good damage. Featherstep will get the kill, but French Emperor is locked down in place. A nice cap by Ray Shadow. Holds him down and trades it 1-for-1.
Man, the mechanical play on that first half of that engagement was so good. The knock-up from Ugly One, blink into range for French Emperor to make sure that he gets that gravity surge, immediately knocks him up again. But he fumbles the bag at the tail end, just holding onto that feather step too long.
I'm a monster off the mark. Lightning Storm good, and the ultimate in from Calvin to try and lock Marcus down, but it's not enough damage. Mark makes it in to save the mid laner, and Ray Shadow tries to come back and hold up big, but with no mana on this Bastet. Should be a nice escape from the boys of ZZ, but Marcus gets out by a thread of health. Can a support find a way out here? Now surrounded by 3. Shield goes down from Picarino. Mark eating a lot of damage. Dark Portal comes out from Skills, but again, able to get out for the time being. Those Tremors not quite enough damage. And again, another one makes it out just by the skin of their teeth.
Man, I love what we just saw from Calvin, though, realizing immediately what the escape path was going to be for this Horus. He knows its mark has to go over towards Marcus, so runs him down, finds the double stun on the tail end, nearly gets enough CC with that Tremor to finish off the kill, but not the case this time around. The healing from this Horus is already reared its head. It's already shown that it might be something that needs to get addressed in the near future, but taking a peek at the build from Picarino, doesn't go for the standard flat pen, instead going down that helmet tree, picking up a little bit more utility as well. So no early anti-heal from your mid laner on ZZ. Maybe you can get a Brawler's Beat Stick, but instead it's going to be a Hydra's Lament for French Emperor in that second slot. No anti-heal across the board. We might be looking at relics, or maybe they're just not concerned. That Horus heal does start to slowly lose value over the course of the game, that it's not a massive burst of healing. Generally will just be that escape for the support himself. And maybe they're just not concerned. We could see ZZ forego it completely and just say, our damage will do it in the late game.
Potentially so, with Ugly One building into damage. A Chronos Pendant first item will give a nice little bit of power to the side of this Jormungandr, but for now it's Ray Shadow diving in. Use that Bass Settle, but it's just off the mark. Picarino doesn't get yanked back in. Ray Shadow has to use his speeds off the Gravity Surge. I'm a monster will slam down on the French Emperor, and it's Mark. We'll make sure to pick up the kill. Now Calvin the one in danger, but he'll be able to make it out just for the time being. Ray Shadow throws out a little bit of poke, but Picarino and Kevin will be able to make it away.
Major team plays desync from ZZ there. Picarino drops his ultimate at the origination point of Ray Shadow's leap, saying, you go back, you land into a lightning storm. And the French Emperor says, psych, nope, he goes back, he's coming back to us in a gravity surge, pulls him out of Zeus's ultimate, pulls him out of the cage from Calvin, and it's so easy from that point for the rest of Thunderhead to work their way forward in that engagement, create the space for Ray Shadow to finish off some of these kills, and walk out with his life.
We do see some defense now coming online for this Jormungandr, but we'll hold that as Mecha Black rotates into the mid lane, drops the Eagles rally, and Calvin eats a massive chunk of their health bar, but Marcus is the one who needs to be a little careful. Under half health on this Scylla. We'll make sure to back away as Mecha Black does go back to base. Lose out on yet another blue buff here. This Jormungandr has not left the lane and will continue to be a menace towards this buff camp to try and put Mecha Black as far behind as possible. But Mecha Black just went back and finished up a full persistent teleport and has already put it to use.
He has, so not going to miss out on too much farm in the soul lane. Ugly One seems to be on that CDR train, really wants to have that 40% early on. Breastplate of Valor looked at in the second slot. You've already got 20% from the Chronos Pendant and the passive, going to push you a little bit over that CDR cap. Kind of, like air quotes. It's just going to give you more CDR every couple of seconds. So he's going to be World Serpenting often. He's going to be knocking people up often. He's going to be using that spit often. Not a whole lot of damage, not incredibly tanky at this point of the game. So he might not be the easiest to gank just by the relative safety of the Jormungandr pick, but he's not going to have a whole lot of value in the laning phase itself. And he's not going to have a whole lot of mana either, because Mecha Black walks up and takes it away with a Scourge.
A nice little steal there by Mecha Black over the wall in the 2v1, mind you, there. But back towards the mid lane here, we do see the double flat pen again coming out of Marcus, the more standardized that we've been seeing out of these mid lane mages. And now kind of a new item that's been popping up. We've been seeing the Void Stone out of a lot of these mages that want to build into that defensive option. But this time around, Picarino going to be going for Stone of Fall instead.
Yeah, just that additional utility, that survivability. And we've seen this has kind of been the answer for Zeus over the last couple of metas. It's either that book build with Book of the Dead or just straight up defense.
Marcus wishing they had a little bit of defense there. Lots of damage coming out from the ZZ squad, but not enough to kill the Scylla just yet. Marcus sitting at 0-0-1. Probably once they clear this wave up, should be pretty close to having enough gold to being able to finish up that second flat pen item. Maybe not. We'll see if they go back and are able to pick that one up. But with this Jormungandr going into this now full 40% CDR build, I gotta wonder, Mifflin, what's the route that he takes for his build at this point on? Does he just go more defense? Does he go more damage?
Maybe you go the middle ground, you know, take the path most traveled, which is bruiser items, maybe a Void Stone, something like that, so he could deal damage and be tanky.
I'm a monster. Woo! Hits French Emperor for most of their health bar. Ray Shadow credit to the last hit of the kill, so no reset for Marcus, but another pick onto this Awilus jungle, and Mecha Black rotating in. Horus Ultimate brings 3 into the realm. Picarino by themselves, but the Sick'em off the mark. Crush does damage. But Ray Shadow doesn't need the help of that mid laner, or maybe he does. Picarino very tanky so far on this Zeus. And the World Serpent to come crashing into the backline to try and break up this team fight. Ugly One doing a lot of damage and creating a lot of space to make sure the rest of the team can get out. But unfortunately, through all of that, Calvin still managed to go down.
Thunderhead just dominating these team fights, man. They split up ZZ, take the engagement, divide and conquer, and now back themselves up to the objective. Ugly One's still relatively healthy, but does not have that ultimate. It's just a steal attempt.
Let's see if they can steal it, but right behind him is Mecha Black. Thunderhead get the Gold Fury. Ray Shadow, not the healthiest on this Bastet, will be able to back out. But it is a Gold Fury, the first one going down in 12 minutes here for Thunderhead. And finally, we're seeing a little bit of a lead. Even despite the fact it was 2-0 earlier on, the Golden XP were negligible, basically nothing. Now Thunderhead have built themselves up a nice 2,500 gold lead.
Yeah, and the experience is starting to get a little bit out of control as well. 4,500 there as well. 2 levels in the jungle, 2 levels in mid, and both targets. You don't want to have massive leads. Bastet dominates with that. Chekio dominates with what he's got as well. Skills just falling down in the lane. Probably doesn't want to take any of those 1v1s in the future, especially considering Chekio's got lifesteal. And Skills just now got his. Hey, another solo kill. Picarino taken out. Marcus walks up real casual-like with the crush and puts him down inside of his own tower. Can we keep it going?
Apparently so. French Emperor is going to go down here to Ray Shadow. Not in the 1v1 solo this time. It will take 2 to get the effort to take them out, but 3 more kills in quick succession when it was such a slow pace first 10 minutes of the game. Now Thunderhead have really opened this one wide open. We almost had a 4th as Mecha Black forced out the World Serpent from Ugly One. And now we're really starting to see this Thunderhead roster. We're seeing the damage that's coming online from these gods.
Yeah, the damage, the survivability, the team fight potential, and the veteranship all favoring the Order side team, as are the neutral objectives. Pyromancer taken away, and Calvin nearly turns the corner to have the privilege of watching it die, but instead is caught out and stopped. Mecha Black, or its Mark rather, make sure that he wasn't able to walk his way forward, and this is just toxic. There's nothing this horse is doing besides peppering like 15 damage per auto attack, and he doesn't have anything better to do with his time because there's nothing to fight over.
Well, for now, he'll throw some of that damage with Picorino, though has to use the ultimate because look at the damage returned right back. Good stun out of Calvin. Good ultimate to try and hold Mark down, but
surely
not quite enough damage yet. We'll need the help of French Emperor, but Marcus with another I'm a Monster clips the jungler and takes them down once again.
Man, that is gotta be so bad for the mental. ZZ struggling now to find anything on the map. It's Mark going for a straight up disrespectful, not great map play either. No reason for him to be walking in towards that red buff. Does so anyway. Escapes nearly, trades out his life though in exchange for a jungler. You take that every single day of the week. French Emperor had to go in, had to finish off that kill because they'd already used ZZ, that is, so many resources in trying to finish off Thunderhead's support that they can't just allow that one to slip away. But in trading his life, that's massive value for its Mark.
We're not seeing any anti-heal that you were bringing up earlier to deal with this horse, aside from still just the Tainted Steel out of Ugly One. Maybe we'll see if Picorino goes into a Divine Ruin with this Tier 1 magic focus. On the opposite side, though, Marcus ended up going for the Spear of the Magus compared to Divine Ruin, which has been the more typical second flat pen item here. How do you feel about Spear of the Magus on Scylla? Maybe we'll hold that for a moment. Skills, though, does have some good damage. Dark Portal and the Beads Aegis are enough to get skills out for now. And that will be enough to make sure that this Hunter player can stay alive. Mecha Black surrounded by 3. We'll find the Eagles rally out, and we'll make it out alive.
Yeah, nothing to worry about there. No way that Kabrakwan is able to close gap and find the walls. To answer your question, Spear of the Magus is just fine. You're usually lining up Crush and I'm a Monster with Sikkim anyway, so you're applying that mark, getting that additional percentage damage on whoever you target first with that Spear of the Magus passive. So watch him. Sikkim first, immediately into Crush. He's going to shred HP bars and can still start to look towards that flat pen a little bit later on in the build if he so chooses. Marcus, I mean, I'm not going to complain about anything he's doing. Man's level 16, 3 levels up on the opposition on a god that already slams damage regardless of the build just because Scylla has so much stats afforded to her in her kit. Do whatever you want, man.
3-0-2 on this mid lane Scylla. Level 16. Only one higher than them is their Hunter player, Chekio, who got a solo kill on his skills just earlier on. Mecha Black has not been having the most fun in this solo lane. Never really a great time squaring up against a Jormungandr as a basic attack warrior. Skills in danger, no relics to their name. Means they don't have many escape options here. And escape they will not do so. Chekio with the Suns and with the help of his support will make sure to lock down and take out the Hunter. Because it's, again, another 90 seconds till those relics are back up.
Yeah, here's the thing about stealth in a 1v1 against Ho Yi. It doesn't work. It simply does not exist. Mark of the Golden Crow says, hey, I know exactly where you are. And the communication from Chekio was very good there. He had the rotation in from Its Mark, but Its Mark can't see him. Golden Crow doesn't expose to your teammates, so he pings him out.
Calvin goes down right after the I'm a Monster from Marcus. French Emperor comes in to try and even things out, but he gets the lockdown. Crush almost evaporates them. Aegis a little early from the detonate. Marcus goes back into the Lightning Storm, but now it's Mark is here, and so is Mecha Black. Takes down French Emperor, and Picorino should be short to follow, but Ugly One wants to at least try and even things out, try and save his mid laner, and do so he will for now. The mobility is good, not quite good enough though. Mecha Black finds the double.
Ugly One inside of his own tower, forced to use the beads. Never a good feeling for a Jormungandr, but that's good return damage. Forces the Aegis out from Chekio and buys some time for skills to respawn and rotate his way in forward. Thunderhead, though, I think they're pretty happy with how this engagement has already gone, and we'll reset and get ready for these neutral objectives. Oni Fury has just respawned and should be the next POI on the map that we see Thunderhead force out. ZZ forced into a position now to make a hard decision. Do we step up and try and take an engagement in neutral territory, 5,000-6,000 gold down? Do we try and split the map? Do we try and slow down this Oni Fury push so that we can split the map towards this Pyromancer? Do we trade out a tier 1 tower? What's the play? I gotta think ZZ's not feeling great about their ability to fight around the neutral itself, especially considering Picarino's got no relics and no ultimate. Ugly One has got no beads. Might just be that we see them, ZZ that is, try and go for like a tier 1 on the map, or considering the current map state, the worst case, a steal attempt.
It is going to be a very early Dark Portal and Spectral Projection out of the ZZ Hunter. Skills just misses
Close.
out there. Chekio also just missing out on a Ricochet bounce there. So Thunderhead will claim yet another objective. Oni Fury goes their way, continues to push up that gold lead. Now we're getting close to that 6,000 gold mark. And Ugly One is now on the beating end here of fighting into this Bologna. Ray Shadow pops the ult up against Calvin. Feather stepped in place, gravity surged right back, and that'll be the death of the jungler. Nice pick there for ZZ, and maybe they can make it a second one as French Emperor finds Marcus.
ZZ's got to do something with this time. They cannot expect a windfall like that to come their way yet again, considering they haven't won out in a team fight in the last like 17 minutes. 2 dead for 40 seconds. ZZ, Tier 1 Tower, Fire Giant, Pyromancer, you got to get as much as you can now.
Chekio is here to try and slow this one down. Tier 1 goes away. It's marked there to try and hold out. French Emperor dives on top of Chekio. But now the Horus ult comes in. Immediately, a Lightning Storm in response by Picarino. It's a 3 versus 4. Calvin's got the ultimate to lock a couple in place here, and the Jormungandr has joined the fray. It's now a 5v3, and for the time being, ZZ is winning this 5v3. They'll find a pick on its mark, and maybe, just maybe, Ugly One can find one onto Chekio with the help of French Emperor. Feather step in place, a couple more basics, and then another double kill up for French Emperor.
ZZ turning this game around quickly and keeping up their pressure. Mecha Black stuck in its tower.
Gonna use the Eagles Rally to try and get away. Use the beats quickly. The bludgeon slams down, but it's not enough. Make it a triple kill for French Emperor to put ZZ right back in this game.
And they still have so much time to play with. What I said like 2 minutes ago where they had 2 dead for 40 seconds and time to play with on the map, it is still true. At the 20-minute mark, ZZ are playing into a deficit, not nearly as large as what we were looking at a couple of moments ago, but I would really like to see them keep pushing this lead. Go to that Pyromancer, go to that Fire Giant, keep Thunderhead off balance, keep them walking in, force the conveyor belt, force them to step up and make a play, slow you down. ZZ now approaching the Pyromancer quickly, but I think this could be a Fire Giant play.
Could be fire. Picarino throwing down some wards, but it seems that they believe their time might be up as far as this map is concerned. They will just grab the Pyromancer, at least to start things out. Marcus, and Ray Shadow on this side of the map. And that'll be enough for ZZ to just take in that fight the Tier 1 Tower. 4, I think actually a full 5 kills with an unofficial deicide there. And a Pyromancer. Slowing this game down, to say the very least. That 6,000 lead that Thunderhead had is now only down to less than 1,000 for ZZ.
Yeah, that is massive for the Chaos team. This game was largely out of control just a couple of moments ago, but this is what happens when you leave an objective up on the map. Thunderhead can start to go towards it themselves. Heat check here. Ugly One spots him out.
Ugly One will find him. Eagles Rally and the ultimate from Mark has already been expended. They're going to have to use all their resources just to get out of this one. 2 chasing them down, plus the World Serpent. Thunderhead will be able to make it out. An ultimate from Calvin, just a little shy of locking one in.
Surprised to see Chekio use Aegis against 1 tick of the World Serpent. He essentially trades a 2-minute cooldown for 200 of his own HP, and he's going to put a massive target on his back in these next couple of fights. This Ho Yi has got no lines of safety for about 20 seconds. Then that beads comes back up. Going to be a little bit easier to survive these fights. ZZ still in a position where they could try and force something, but instead they're giving Thunderhead space to regroup and choose their own footing.
Oh, Mark wanted that pick, but the back is just in time. They do still have this belt to the Berserker. Thunderhead are going to start up this Fire Giant. We'll see if they hold to the commit here. Ray Shadow zoning French Emperor away. Ugly One with no World Serpent to get in. The Suns and the belt have been popped through. Fire Giant burning quickly. Lightning Storm is here, but Thunderhead are going to be the ones to grab it. But Ray Shadow gets yanked back in by the gravity surge from French Emperor. And now, once again, Thunderhead are on the run, but Chekio doesn't have the Aegis, doesn't have the beads, and doesn't have any more health.
Marcus forced to use the beads in his own tower, maybe just prolonging the inevitable as his buddy Itzmark falls right behind him. That's a double kill for Ugly One. 4 dead on Thunderhead, and ZZ are knocking on the door of the base. Tier 2 tower will fall, and it's all on Mecha Black to put up a defense. But there are 5 healthy targets lined up against them.
Tier 2 tower goes down. Phoenix should go down just as quickly. That disarm does not hit the carries, does not hit the primary damage dealers.
Titan?
ZZ maybe posturing up here for this Titan. It's still 16 seconds until Ray Shadow's up. Mecha Black has got to put up one hell of a defense to hold back 5 here. ZZ will go in, and on a coin toss, on a flip on the dime here, ZZ are going to turn game 1 around and get themselves a victory to start this set.
What an amazing comeback play from ZZ, man. Thunderhead get a little bit over-aggressive, step too far forward, and never were really allowed to get their footing back under him off that initial pick towards the center of the map. ZZ clears out 4, takes out a tier 1 tower, backs up, picks up another tower on the right-hand side, goes to the Pyromancer, and Thunderhead felt like they felt the pressure, right? Despite ZZ letting off the gas a little bit, saying, okay, look, we closed up the game. We're going to go ahead and wait it out. Thunderhead said, oh my god, they made a comeback. We got to pull the Fire Giant. Maybe not the safest time to do so, though.
That Fire Giant ends up costing everybody their life on the side of Thunderhead besides Mecha Black, and he wasn't enough to defend against ZZ here in game number 1. ZINEDINE takes game 1, and we'll take a break and come back for game 2. Well, in game number 1, it started off in all Thunderhead's control. Some nice early kills and picks to start things out. And in one big team fight around the halfway point of the game, around 17, 18 minutes, Zinedine Zidane, are able to turn things around with 2 big picks. A tower immediately after that one, a couple more, and Thunderhead make a very questionable play to pull that Fire Giant that ends up costing them the game.
I'm not even sure if the Fire Giant pull itself was the worst part of it. I'm sure we're going to get a look back afterward, but I think there was a moment where Thunderhead said, okay, we got fire. Oh, we have fire. We can fight because fire makes you strong, and well, you'd already used so much on the confirmation itself. But instead, we'll start at the 19-minute mark at the first look of fight back from Zinedine Zidane as they take out 2 targets and start to slowly work their way across the rest of the map immediately afterward. And Thunderhead lose out on, what was that, a 5,000, 6,000 gold lead immediately.
Yeah, big pick there to start things off. Picarino getting the kill. French Emperor dives even further in to make sure to get that pick against Marcus. And that transitions itself into a tier 1 tower in the mid lane, a Pyromancer, and then a triple kill by French Emperor immediately after, which will get a nice little POV from French Emperor's perspective at the least. And this is a case, I mean, we saw it earlier where Chekio had used the Aegis just to get away from one initial tick of damage and didn't save it for the one who's actually dealing the damage out here. It's French Emperor on this Awilish, a 10th pick from the Zinedine jungler, and this 10th pick paid off in dividends at the end of the game.
It did, and that's not exactly the portion of the game that you expect a Wheelish to pop off in, right? Like, generally a Wheelish is there for the early to mid game, but instead, well, French Emperor shows that it's very capable of playing at every single portion of the game. And there it is. There's your indicator of how things went poorly. Was that a knock-up from Fire Giant onto Ray Shadow that was then pulled in by the Gravity Surge from French Emperor? And then immediately afterward, everything falls apart. ZZ pushes their way forward, takes out 4, and, well, with Mecha Black being the sole remaining member, he had to line up against 5 people on the door of his Titan, and that's not super easy to do for anyone, let alone a Bologna.
Especially when you don't have that Eagles rally at any stage of the defense here. ZZ with a nice turnaround, and like it showed, I mean, we were almost 19 minutes in the game. Thunderhead were up nearly 6,000 gold at that point, and ZZ finds 2 small picks, and they can't even call them small because they were game-changing picks up against Ray Shadow and Marcus, and then ZZ turned this one around to end this out. Ugly One with this weird kind of a startup here. This Chronos Pendant, Breastplate of Valor didn't work out super well to start out the early game, but those World Serpents, as we got into these late game team fights, were some of the most annoying disruptions that you could ask for.
Super hard to deal with, had a nearly infinite range as well, and that style of build, the Chronos Pendant into Breastplate of Valor, is not unheard of. We've seen something similar from Warriors in the past, specifically gods like Tyr, like Hercules. We've seen Jotun's Wrath immediately into Breastplate. You want that CDR online very early, but the common thread between the Tyrs, the Hercules of the world, is that they've got sustain in their kit. They've got the ability to just spam out their abilities and continually heal and win out in these long battles in the solo. Early CDR stack up on Jormungandr just means your poke got a lot better. So I'm still on the fence on whether or not I love that build.
Well, we'll see what gets to change up here in game number 2 in the picks and bans between Thunderhead and Zinedine Zidane. ZZ up 1-0 to start this set out. One more win means they move on in the bracket for another chance to make it into the EU-SCC. Thunderhead now on the back foot. If they lose this one, they are out of this tournament entirely. They'll start things out with a Tiamat ban. I think probably the most strikingly interesting one out of all of the mages to first ban here. I mean, Tiamat Season 8 was probably one of the best mages you could have asked for, but as of Season 9, initially she saw a lot less favoritism. We definitely saw the Agnis, the Thoths of the world become the most prevalent ones, but it still seems that Thunderhead are showing a little bit of respect towards that mage.
I mean, Tiamat is just good. She's just going to be a good god. She's got great presence in lane, decent ability to split push, some of the best scaling of the mages into the late game, decent initiation, great survivability, CC immunity into the kit, 2 leaps. Yeah, she does it all. Knock up as well, you know, CC onto the enemies, artillery range damage, a range stun. Wow, this god's got a lot of abilities.
That's a lot.
Yeah, you know, range slow, a knock up. Oh, God, man. She's got everything. If it's in Smite, she's got it, except for a Mez. Tiamat can't Mez you.
We should add that. That way she can. That way she can have everything.
I'm good.
Actually, I think she's also technically missing a god execute. She does have minion executes. That's a little bit different, though. Completely here, though. Tiamat, Jormungandr, Bologna. First one's banned away by Thunderhead, Kleena, Fenrir, and Bastet taken away by ZZ. So despite the performance that Ray Shadow had at the start of game number 1, ZZ do not want to give him a second chance or a second win on this god. Instead, it'll be Amaterasu picked up by Thunderhead. And now Medusa and hovering this Bacchus, which has been one of the standout supports that have kind of snuck their way into the meta here in Season 9.
Yeah, I love Bacchus. It's the aggression, it's the stuns, it's the ability to not only be the initiator, but the guy who can finish off fights once you get that lead for yourself. That ultimate does so much damage. The leap is such a great initiation tool, and he still is the tankiest late game Guardian in the game. Thanks to Chug, thanks to the itemization that he generally looks towards, Bacchus really does find a home in the current meta. So no surprise to see him picked up. Maybe a little bit of a surprise to see him picked up this early, considering we haven't really seen too many bans headed his way, but I'm just fine with it. Doesn't necessarily have any bad matchups, except for like an Awelish, but who's picking Awelish, you know, wink.
Well, their jungler would be picking it, so he doesn't have anything to worry about here, potentially. But now with a Horus and Ama and a Serket locked in, fortunate here for ZZ, he probably will not have to worry about an Awelish ruining his day. But they will pick up Zeus one more time on the ZZ roster. But Serket makes her way through. We've been seeing a ton of priority on banning this god for flexibility in support and jungle. But now with this Horus locked in, gotta imagine the Serket is going to be making her way into the jungle role. And you throw Agni now out here in the first bans for ZZ, as they've already got their strong mid lane pick.
Yeah, maybe followed up with something like a Thoth as well. Maybe a Merlin ban for ZZ if you want to. Toss some respect towards that Scylla, because that Scylla was dominating in the mid-game portions, landing I'm a Monsters consistently. Yeah, I've convinced myself. Ban out the Scylla. It's a Thoth. I should have went with the gut, you know. That's the first one we called. Unfortunate. Maybe we see Thunderhead just lock in the Scylla and then pop off with it again, and then I get to feel instant validation, you know, vindicated in my decision.
Potentially so here, but it's going to be Thor in a Wheelish band away, so Thunderhead don't want to deal with the jungler going through. Instead, it'll now be a Shock as the next god locked in by ZZ. So with the Jormungandr gone, now we move over into the solo lane Shock pickup. Maybe actually not even solo. I can't say that for how many Shock jungles that we've been seeing over the course of the last few weeks of competitive play. Still a little bit of ambiguity left up in the air. It will not be Scylla yet, and it may not be Scylla at all for this mid lane pick on Thunderhead.
Don't say that.
May. I said may. We'll leave it at a may, maybe not here. It is Cernunnos first as far as the picks are concerned, so getting the Hunter to round out the lane. But it will not be a Scylla, unfortunately, Mifflin. It will be Persephone picked up.
She's good too. Oh, man.
I guess.
Yeah, Persephone, probably if we're talking just power ranking, is going to be a little bit better than Scylla overall. Has got consistent CC with the Grasp of Death, a fair deal of survivability, decent burst potential as well. You're going to be sacrificing the ability to finish off objectives in exchange for more team fight presence. That's the trade-off when you go towards this Persephone over the Scylla on the other end. And looking at the entirety of Thunderhead's draft, teamfight presence is the name of the game. Dazzling offensive, Serket's ability to go for that full tanky style build but still deal a ton of damage, Cernunnos having a standard large AoE burst bit of damage with that ultimate, as well as phenomenal CC, with the polymorph acting as both a disarm and a silence in these fights. And then Persephone, you know what she does. Even if she misses you, she's probably hitting you because Grasp of Death is big and Jungle Pass are tiny.
Thunderhead have rounded out their rosters, and so has ZZ with a 10th pick Mercury. We saw a 10th pick of Wheelish last time for jungle, but now with a Mercury making its way in here, Mifflin will talk a little bit about this Mercury as the game goes on, kind of his late game hyper-scaling presence, but as of now, we have not been seeing a whole lot of Mercury. How do you kind of feel about this god as we get ready to jump here into game number 2?
I think Mercury, real good. I think it's really, really good. He's super strong. He's got great scaling into the late game. I think Mercury in this draft, not exactly great. Not what I want for my jungler right now. Because when I look at ZZ's draft, it's incredibly one-note initiation and then pretty lackluster peel in the backline. You're going to have Ugly One and Calvin running it down. French Emperor likely going to be joining them with that ultimate, the Sonic Boom. And then you've got Zeus and Medusa fighting for their lives in the backline. That is no help from your own front line. They don't have the greatest peel tool, so instead it's just up to Zeus and Medusa to peel with damage. And they've got damage in spades, but up against the dive of Thunderhead, the individual pieces that Thunderhead have drafted for themselves, I think they deal with the picks of Medusa and Zeus very well with their dive potential. Amaterasu, very safe, can use that silence to kind of delay the detonate, make sure that Lacerate doesn't get you out of these situations either. Ray Shadow going to be very tanky, so even if he is isolated in the back line, probably going to have a decent time in that 1v1 or 1v2 as well.
Frenzy popped in, but Calvin is the one feeling the pain here, surrounded by Mark and Chekyo. Not quite enough damage to take down either of these gods in the duo lane, ZZ and Thunderhead. will both maintain their lives as far as the duo is concerned. And French Emperor going for a very early back camp invade. Will dash up against Ray's Shadow, but that might not have been the best call. Will lose out on his beads because of it, and now it's a triple rotation in. Mecha Black and Marcus will meet up with French Emperor. But French Emperor with nice pathing will get away from the double gank in.
Yeah, and he did it casually, man. He just walked out of all that damage. Marcus misses everything and turns on a heel, says, "Oh, my bad, guys." Ray's Shadow was waiting a little bit longer to get his taunt back up, but the dash from Mercury would have come back in time, and Mecha Black, pathing high, just misses out on that entire fight. So French Emperor walks in, steals the back camps, and walks away like a bandit.
Unfortunately, though, does lose out on the Relic there, so beads down. Maybe I'll have them up, hopefully, by the time that Gravity Surge comes online from, or not actually a Gravity Surge, from a Last Breath here. I'm still having flashbacks of the Awilish. That was even him who played it there, so waiting and hoping he doesn't have to deal with this Circuit anytime soon. But here into the mid lane, he'll clear out with Picarino. I mean, he basically got away with murder. He just got to walk to a back camp, dash an enemy, and then walk himself out.
And now he's got a slight experience advantage as well. Level 3 to the 2 of Ray's Shadow. Can he get away with it again?
Seems for now he will. Ray's Shadow may not be able to make it out, though. One good made you look would be enough to take him down. Calvin in danger on the other side. Mark slows him out with that first ability. Now Skills is the one on the run. Still beads available to this Medusa, waiting for that dash to come back off of cooldown, assuming that Skills has it. Mark really wants to close out this kill. Fracture in, but a nice belly flop from Calvin will instead trade out his life to save that of his hunter. It's Mark strikes first blood.
Man, Calvin, massive play there. That is everything you want from a support. He dove head first onto a grenade to make sure that his Medusa walks out alive, and, well, she does in exchange for his life and the purple buff. So got to give credit to Thunderhead for creating that situation and being able to fight in to that early pressure that Medusa affords you. But I don't know, man. Support plays like that's what gets me going. That's good Smite.
Yeah, nice little belly flop there. Saves the Hunter's life. Unfortunately, he will go down. Does allow him to get his tier 2 of his mail online to start building up towards that sovereignty. French Emperor level 4 on this Mercury, a little bit low on mana, will be able to go back to base and start working up on that crit that he's elected for first. Not going for what I would imagine would have been something like a katana instead. Building up into the short sword now for French Emperor.
Gotta think it's going to be a rage. If you're building into this tree so early on, you don't really benefit from Deathbringer first item, despite what every single one of your low-level ranked lobbies would lead you to believe. You want to get those stacks online as quickly as possible for rage. So that means every time you get a kill, every time you get an assist, you gain additional crit percentage chance, which means you're going to get a lot more value from some of these other items like Wind Demon, like Deathbringer.
Picarino caught inside the cage. Lightning Storm won't save his life, and it might not even save French Emperor as he gets caught out by Ray's Shadow with that last breath. The Sonic Boom is here, but it will not get him out in time. Ray's Shadow closes the gap and closes out the kill. 3-0 to start here for Thunderhead.
And it's already starting to rear itself a little bit. The dive potential that Thunderhead's draft has got against the individual picks of ZZ. There is not much a Zeus can do to stop these targets on Thunderhead from closing gap. Amaterasu CC immune when she starts her initiation. Ray's Shadow is one of the most mobile, if not the most mobile, assassin in the game. Its Mark has got a global ultimate to close gap as well, and it's all ranged CC from Marcus and Chekio. This adds up to a game that is likely going to be very difficult for Picarino to navigate in these team fights. Luckily does maintain his beads throughout that fight, realizing that even had he used it, likely would have died anyway. So he gets another chance to survive the next engagement that comes his way. Also slowly starting to stack up some of that survivability with that helmet start means that it's going to be a little bit harder, for Thunderhead to get some value in these team fights. But I'm talking myself out of it because I'm looking at Surcat and I'm like, that's true damage. I don't really care about that defense. You're Zeus. You don't really have a lot of HP. Surcat Ultimate probably doing upwards of like 20% on its own. Surcat Passive going to get about 15, 10% as well. Still going to be pretty hard for Picarino to survive these fights.
And has gone for this Gilded Arrow star. We saw it pop up yesterday on these Zeuses, where typically it's been, like Eye of the Jungle has been kind of the most common one that we've seen on a lot of Zeuses. But now going for this Gilded Arrow, more damage on your basic attacks, a little bit of extra gold here. And like you said, coupling that with a Celestial Legion helm to start this one out. Calvin on the Bacchus will spot Ray's Shadow. Ray's Shadow wants nothing to do with this support, so he'll make sure to dash his way on out. But talking about the early support builds here, Mark going into a more traditional mixed damage comp, will go towards that Gauntlet of Thebes. Calvin, though, wants that sovereignty because of what he's facing off against.
Yeah, and he wants to get involved a little bit earlier on, wants to be the initiator. Every time you go for sovereignty or a Heart Ward in that first slot, it just tells me, I want to fight, and I want to fight now.
They want to fight Calvin, but Calvin has a quick belly flop to get away, and the Lightning Storm from Picarino will make sure to separate them and allow the support of ZZ to get themselves on out. Mark and Marcus will walk back towards the backside of their jungle. Meanwhile, French Emperor will round themselves out over to go ahead and grab these Oracle Harpies. Actually did have a Gilded Arrow proc there. It seems that Picarino did jump within range to get that extra gold over to his jungler. And Calvin, who was the initiator last time, is the one being initiated on. And he'll be able to get that kill. Picarino credited towards him. Marcus, not quite enough damage. That camp going to make sure to hold him in place. And Chekyo will rotate over from the dual lane, pick up a kill of their own. But Thunderhead are up 4-1 in this early game.
Yeah, gotta think that was an avoidable death for Calvin. We'll see if Ray Shadow can avoid his own 3 charges of the detonate. Will drop him low, but won't finish off the kill. French Emperor has got the ultimate. If he can line up this shot, just needs to connect it to finish off that kill.
Ooh, oh, not so hot there from Skills. Thought Chekyo was maybe going to go a little bit further with that kill, but Chekyo does not and baits out that Petrify from the Medusa. Skills now without an ultimate.
Oh my god.
French Emperor now without most of their health bar as Chekyo is slamming those big damage numbers in on this Cernunnos.
Yo, Doug, can I get a look at the level priority on this Cernunnos, man? That dash was doing a lot. Yeah, he's putting a second point into that one. So, burst potential certainly favoring Cern right now, and that is some decent scaling coming his way as well. And if you're feeling confident enough on Cern to be dashing aggressively at this portion of the game into junglers, into the mid lane, you're probably feeling pretty confident in the lane as well. Skills, despite playing the more aggressive of the 2 picks, has been losing out in a lot of these trades.
You know what's the wildest thing that occurred to me the other day looking at Cernunnos is that dash is just a dash. There's nothing else to it. It doesn't have any CC with it. It doesn't have any CC immunity. He's literally just running at you and doing damage, just like they're doing to Ugly One here. Will hold out this chalk in place. Mecha Black is going to go down. It's French Emperor credit towards the kill. Mark a little bit late on the rotation with his mid laner to save their solo's life.
Yeah, you're not really expecting your support to show up to the solo lane, though, so I'm just happy that Mark shows up at all. I'm just happy that he is trying to make that rotation. French Emperor, though, with a double ultimate with the Sonic Boom in the solo lane will completely separate that engagement and make it a little bit more one-sided for ZZ. And we find ourselves in a pretty similar situation as Game 1 in that it's a significant kill lead for Thunderhead, but Golden Experience has not gone that wildly out of control. It's a little bit larger than what we saw at the 8-minute mark in Game 1, but I'm waiting for that first objective. I'm waiting for this Gold Fury or this Pyromancer in about a minute and a half to really start to force engagements and separate these squads. And I would argue that ZZ should likely have the advantage at this portion of the game, just thanks to that Zeus. You're going to get so much value around these neutrals because it's so much easier to apply that Chain Lightning. Hit the objective, you're hitting some enemies too.
French Emperor does have 2 stacks on that Rage and working in towards what I imagine will probably be an Atalanta's bow from this jungler. So a little bit of extra crit chance, a little bit of lifesteal, more importantly some power and attack speed to help this Mercury out. A lot of damage over towards that left-hand side, and the Oracle Harpies over for ZINEDINE ZIDANE with a 3-man group up to confirm that one out. But this is kind of what we saw in game number 1. A lot of early fighting from Thunderhead. Didn't really net them too much of a lead. It wasn't until that first real objective play that we did see them finally start to build themselves up a gold lead. Got up to about 6,000 before things started going out of control.
Yeah, it got up to that 6K real quick. It stagnated, and then it went the opposite direction immediately. So whichever squad establishes the lead this time, I'm expecting a little bit more patient play from either side now, realizing how quickly a game can turn on its head. If we're going to establish pacing, I think ZZ would likely like to slow it down, especially considering the style of build that we're seeing from French Emperor. Going for that crit so early on means that he doesn't have a whole lot of penetration just yet, doesn't have the ability to get super involved in these fights, really reliant on luck at this point, a lot of RNG involved once French Emperor gets involved in these fights. So, likely wants to wait it out just a little bit longer, hedge his bets, get a little bit more crit, get a little bit more damage before he forces an engagement, unless he can find just a very nice ultimate, which very well this could be.
I was wondering what that first defense item from Ray Shadow was going to
clean.
be. An ultimate in from French Emperor to try and turn it back around. Chekio will fall to skills. French Emperor juking for as much as they can, but Ray Shadow shows up to put a good night kiss there to take down French Emperor. 1-for-1 trade, jungler for Hunter. At least keeps things even here for ZZ.
That was a perfect Mercury ult. It doesn't get better than that. He just touches the carry there, Chekio, and immediately goes into those auto attacks. Unfortunately, that RNG I was just talking about comes into play. I believe it was only one crit landed for that Mercury, and it was the last one to finish off the kill. Had he gotten a couple more a little bit earlier in that fight, well, he probably just walks away immediately afterward. Instead, though, Chekio applies so much damage before he goes down. Gets a lot of value from that Aussie as well and buys some time for the rest of his team to rotate in and turn it into a 1-for-1 trade.
Going back to Ray Shadow here on the defense, it is going to be high to the Nemean line instead of a breastplate of valor. So trying to immune out some of those auto attacks that may come from French Emperor here on this Mercury. Try and hopefully mitigate out at least one crit amongst there. We'll see how much more defense Ray Shadow elects to build in towards this build, because that's the only way you're really going to get a whole lot of value from this Nemean line.
Yeah, maybe some Spectrals as well. I mean, if you're getting one shot, Spectral's probably just going to stop it. And a Spectral would dissuade the Mercury from going further down that crit tree. Could slow down his build pretty significantly at this point, but I'd argue that French Emperor has already established a very good pace for himself, has 3 of the 3 affected kills, so he's already got 3 stacks on the Rage as well, only 2 more, so that one's finished up and it evolves. Maybe we see him go towards Wind Demon in this next slot. Traditionally, we see like Serrated Edge, things along those lines for the Mercury, but we don't traditionally see Atalanta's Rage as the first 2 items either, so I'm getting in the head of French Emperor. I'm trying to figure out where he's going. And I think it might be a Wind Demon.
We'll see if it is the Wind Demon. It's another Nemean line, this one by Mecha Black on the side of Thunderhead. So 2 Nemean lions to try and deal with the auto attacks, not just from the Mercury, but obviously from when skills and Picarino also become a part of this fight later on. Another Stone of Fall pickup by the Zeus, coupled with that Celestial Legion Helm. So it's going to be a lot of defense on the side for Picarino.
I was wrong.
Just like we had before. But it's going to be Hidden Dagger. So Deathbringer, going to be a 3rd item pickup here by this Merc.
Just not a whole lot of stats right now. Sure, Atalanta's is a pretty strong stat stick. You get a lot of stats across the board, some early lifesteal, a little bit of attack speed, but still not a single shred of penetration available to the French Emperor. So you're not really stacking power that much either. Deathbringer going to help out a fair bit, but it's so expensive. I just got to think that Serrated Edge would likely just do the same thing, but all the time? I don't know.
Last breath in on top of Picarino. Beads and Aegis expended by the Zeus. Get away from the double ult combo from Ray Shadow and Marcus. Calvin used the belch but doesn't find anybody. Now that Ugly One has rotated in, this will continue to dissuade Thunderhead from going any further on in the fight. And that will be the end of the engagement there. But going towards this Deathbringer, the most common one that we see when it is picked up, it's almost always by the Hunters, is that Envenom Deathbringer. But do you think that French Emperor might go towards a Malicious Deathbringer instead?
I sure hope not. I really hope not. Envenomed is just going to get you more value across the board, and Mercury is not a type of god that is really using his abilities super often. Mercury is going to walk up, drop his 2, and say, that's it. That's the only ability I need. I'm punching you now. I'm simply laying hands on my opposition. I'm bringing these hammers, and I'm hopefully critting. Because every single time you use Made You Look, you switch it up to the ultimate, you go into that dash, it's a DPS trade-off. Generally, gods that go towards the other Deathbringer who need that CDR are gods that are spamming abilities. Mercury does not count himself amongst those.
Ray Shadow rotating over with Marcus, seeing if they can find a pick here up against French Emperor. He'll spot that ward being dropped, and that'll be a quick backup now by the jungler. And it'll take a little time before he can get that 3rd item online, as you said, a very expensive pickup early on. But Ray Shadow is done with being patient, and so is Mark. He'll go in with the Horse Ultimate to cut off the path, and Calvin is locked down and shredded away. Marcus on the side of Thunderhead is the one to pick up the kill.
Yeah, they executed him with extreme prejudice, my guy. That was a wild, aggressive play, and they're going again.
Gonna try and find skills and Picarino if they can. For now, it'll just be the one mid lane, but 4-man Sonic Boom in the backline by French Emperor will hold out the fight. Ultimate by Chekio just off the mark, and that one Sonic Boom may have just been the saving grace of this Medusa.
Maybe, but not the Gold Fury, not the objective, not the 2 members that you had already lost in this team fight, Picarino and Calvin. Calvin just now in the respawn. can hear the noise from across the map. Thunderhead credit for the first neutral objective on the map. And that is just aggressive play. It is not often that a team just says, all right, it's time to fight. We hit some power spikes. They didn't even necessarily hit any major power spikes. They just decided that it was time to go in for that engagement. They picked up like a restored artifact. We were sitting on like a silver talisman for Ray Shadow. And they just walk in and kill everybody. ZZ were not ready. They didn't defend each other either. Picarino saves his own ultimate for himself. Calvin gets left high and dry, and it is an easy engagement for Thunderhead.
Frenzy pop over here by ZZ. They want to get something
That's
off
massive.
the tail end of that fight. And it will be a Pyromancer to get themselves a little bit of extra gold and try and stabilize this lead that Thunderhead has slowly been building up for themselves here. 2,000 plus up in gold, only though around 1,000 XP that Thunderhead have up. And most of that is coming from this mid lane. Marcus is up level 16 versus 14 on Picarino.
That's nice. I wouldn't think that Persephone's the one that you necessarily need the lead on, but considering the itemization, it's going to go a long way. Right, it's a Hootie in that third slot. You're going to have a lot of damage coming from Bone Rush. That ultimate going to tick well as well.
Picarino, no relics now with that bead's been burned. The
Oh,
Aegis
see ya.
will hold for a little while longer, but that length is very minimal. Mark will use the Horus ultimate just to get themselves out of the midst of the fight. Ugly One blinks in, finds 3 with the ultimate, finds 2 with the axe, and 2 with the torrent right after. French Emperor cannot secure the last hit onto Marcus, and a big belly flop in from Calvin will only delay Mecha Black from trying to escape. Ugly One holding the tower aggro, but will not find any kill as Chekio runs through the backline, drops his own ult, but doesn't find any damage.
It's Mark, still playing with fire, hovering nearby in this fight. Good knockup from Calvin, but no follow-up from the team. Should allow Thunderhead to immediately disengage, and, well, Mecha Black has teleport. Mecha Black has used teleport, and Mecha Black has found skills in the back.
Right into the back, but no dazzling offensive. We'll just need the basics. Needs the enhance to get it. Chekio, can they
Bye.
find one? Will weave right between and find the damage with the Bramble Blast. Skills goes down after such an elongated team fight. And Mecha Black the one to make sure to hold that one out for as long as possible. Now, Tier 1 tower under threat, but Ugly One with all this cooldown has found another ultimate to slow this team fight down. But can they save this Tier 1?
No
Can they
way.
save their teammates? Another big ult in by Marcus into the backline. T1 goes down, and Picarino, who just got back from the last fight, is sent right back to the grave.
Ray Shadow is just angry at Picarino, man. He walks past everybody on ZZ and kills them in the exact same spot as last time. Goes around the Tier 1 tower, finds his target, immediately followed up by Grasp of Death, and Picarino has got to have the most wild sense of deja vu in that grayscale screen. Now, Thunderhead, so dominant in these team fights. Can Ray Shadow walk his way out of here? I'd argue yes.
There's a Circuit, very mobile on that Assassin, and still quite tanky here with that Nemean line and Bulwark of Hope. A lot of extra HP and defenses to this Circuit's name. And I was wondering earlier how much more defense, how tanky is Ray Shadow wanting to go with this build path. Well, not just the Nemean and the Bulwark, it will be a Cloak of Concentration right after for even more defense.
Okay, here's the thing about how we're on 9.2 right now. It's on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Those Circuit changes, that wall of text that we saw in that most recent patch show, where it changes Circuit away from this full tank, still going to just decimate you style of God with damage. Now, not live, not here, not just available quite yet. So still going to be able to go down that entire tank tree and still going to do a whole lot of damage with her passive and her ultimate. That's going to be the core of what she's using to finish off some of these squishier targets on ZZ. I personally am really looking forward to those Circuit changes, man. I cannot wait until that god is super squishy.
Yeah, I got to experience some of that pain of what the new Circuit is able to do. It's a lot of damage, even to some of the tankier targets.
She's squishy,
still
though.
does quite a bit, but yeah, as you say, she will definitely be much more glass cannon heavy in that role. But for now, Ray Shadow is going to take the chances that they can get to build into this tankier route and still do that crazy damage up here, and that is enough to keep his life alive up against French Emperor in that last engagement. It's been enough to allow Ray Shadow to consistently dive this Zeus between what was a Tier 1 and Tier 2 tower,
Mark.
and instead is just
Turn
diving
around.
everywhere they want to go. Now, Mark's fine. What are you talking about? He's a horse. He's fine.
Yeah, but he got spotted. Skills pinged him like 5 times, and Mark never saw him.
Seems that he's fine, and Ray Shadow's fine to dive to the back line. Ultimate used onto Picarino yet again. It's Mark wants to keep this Zeus out of the action. Dazzling offensive will find skills as beads.
Good
And a
ult.
lightning storm finds 2 inside. Ray Shadow gets that bulwark popped, but Chekio finds skills all by themselves at the back line. No help from French Emperor to keep them alive, and Calvin may not have much longer to go. Triple sonic boom is good. Ugly One trying to close out the distance, trying to close out that kill, but they can't do so. It's Marcus to put the French Emperor down.
Yeah, look, the sonic booms have been great. 4-man, 3-man, 5-man, doesn't matter. But he hasn't landed any auto attacks in these team fights, man. He hasn't used his build just yet. You're triple crit stack early on. If you had some penetration, that ultimate would do some more damage. That's all I'm saying. You can't crit with Sonic Boom. That's all I'm saying. And he hasn't. He hasn't landed the autos, but he has been landing the abilities. And he immediately gets shut down on the tail end. A nice place bone rush from Marcus makes sure that this Mercury remains getting 0 value in these team fights. Thunderhead now 13-3 across the top, and I think could do just about no wrong on the map. I'd like to see him 21 minutes into the game. Yeah, just go do fire. Just walk up on it. They just walked into the back camps on the left side of the map. It wasn't a sneak play. They didn't gank him because immediately Mark was pinged out. They knew, ZZ that is, exactly what was happening. Thunderhead did not secretly get into your back line. They walked at you. That was like 1700s British military tactics. They lined up in a wall and walked you down. That is wild.
Chekio and the rest of Thunderhead will take out the Pyromancer and start towards Fire Giant. Ugly One is here. Will throw the axe over the wall, Torrent on in, and drop that ultimate. Will only find Mecha Black with the Fire Giant has been leashed, and the skills gets caught out inside that grasp of death for Chekio to put them down. Mark goes in with the ultimate, did a little bit of a shield towards himself, and a quick retreat out of Thunderhead. Calvin goes back in, Sonic Boom finds 2, but yet again, French Emperor can't stick around for the fight. And as soon as they turn their head to think maybe I can get a shot in, Ray Shadow is the one to put him down yet again.
Man, ZZ struggling to find their footing in these fights. They are landing their abilities consistently. They just simply deal less damage than Thunderhead. They just need to find outplays. They need to find isolated environments where they can go for 2v1s, 3v1s. But Thunderhead have been a roaming 5-man death ball for the last 7 minutes. There hasn't been an opportunity for ZZ to go for any picks. And in this situation where you've gone for this style of composition, it's something we talked about during P's and B's. This is where it's really going to start to struggle, the back line of ZZ, that is, to survive the dive of Thunderhead. Well, it's happened. It's come to fruition. They are struggling to survive, and now they're struggling in a massive gold deficit as well.
Ugly One boxing up against Mecha Black for speed buff control. That won't go Ugly One's way. Mecha Black steals that away. His team takes out Tier 2 tower on the right lane. Only 2 towers left standing. But who cares about those towers right now? Maybe potential Phoenix startup here by Thunderhead. They are grouped up. They've got a minion wave. Ray Shadow on the far side of the map. He'll dive into the back line. It's Mark will dive under the Phoenix towards skills. Grasp of Death finds Calvin. The support is locked in. Ugly One doesn't find a whole lot of value out of his ultimate. Mark gets a shield out to help the team out. Phoenix is not taking a lot of damage though, but Calvin and Ugly One are, and so is the front line of Thunderhead. It'll be a retreat from the Order side team.
Yeah, Fire Giant will be able to resustain you a fair bit, but maybe not quick enough that Thunderhead want to stick around. Taking a peek at the builds yet again from ZZ. Still no anti-heal from anybody, I believe. Yeah, there's a lot of items there, J-Mac. Keep me honest, but I don't see anything on the board right now. So this Horus value has gotten a lot so far in the last couple of games. And there isn't any anti-heal relics either. Fire Giant Sustain going to go a long way. Lifesteal in the build is going to go a long way. Thunderhead get to stick around in these team fights for a very long time. And ZZ, they don't. They don't get to stick around because they're lacking sustain. They're simply lacking damage at this point, just by deficit nature. Thunderhead now, I think, can go ahead and start working their way through the entirety of the map. Might as well take out these Tier 2 towers because the base defense of ZZ, although strong thanks to Zeus, is not incredibly strong because it is so much harder for auto-attack junglers to find value in these scenarios, in these base defenses, than any other time. This is the worst point of the game to be a Nemesis. This is the worst point of the game to be a Mercury because you're squishy, you have to close gap into melee range, and you got to line up against 5 people on the other side. We might see French Emperor be completely relegated to a, I'm going to stand back, I'm going to throw out my ones, and I'm going to hope that I crit. And then I'm going to back up and do it again, and hope that somebody dies eventually.
Maybe even hope that Picarino can find a nice lightning storm if a sonic boom does come through. All ults up on both teams here, but Thunderhead are very wary of going in towards this left side Phoenix. French Emperor is here by himself. in this mid lane. But it's just to make sure to keep eyes on Ray Shadow, maybe just try and keep the hope of this last tier 2 tower available. Ray Shadow is not concerned with the tower. They are concerned with the fight, knowing that French Emperor was in that mid lane. It's an initiation in from Ray Shadow. Sonic Boom waiting to go off here by French Emperor. How many is he going to find after the ultimate from Ugly One? He'll only grab Chekio. Chekio wants that boxing match. French Emperor cannot make their way back in. Ugly One knocked up by its mark, but not enough damage just yet. Everyone on ZINEDINE sitting around half health.
French Emperor has not made his way back to base just yet. Instead, walks himself all the way through the jungle. As long as he doesn't show any presence on the map, he's still going to find value. There's going to be some respect from Thunderhead. Now finally starting his back.
Mark goes back in, and it's a 5v4. No sign of the French Emperor until he just now goes back to base. Calvin soaks up some damage, but not a lot was dealt to the Phoenix here by Thunderhead. They go in with Mark, and they find 4 people under that Phoenix, but Phoenix still stands.
Yeah, still 4 beads available to ZZ. The majority of beads up for Thunderhead as well. No ultimates on the map as of now. Whole lot of swings, not a whole lot of connections from either of these teams in these fights. But Tier 2 tower has gone down, so small win there for Thunderhead, exposing that left side Phoenix. And in just a moment, I'll say the same thing about the mid tower.
Tier 2 will go down. That's the last tower stripped off the map here by Thunderhead. They've got a few of their own, and they've got a Primal Fury if Thunderhead wishes to go there as a consolation prize, and they will do so. Stripping off all towers, and now all neutral objectives besides that Pyromancer, and with Fire Giant now off of their wastes, Thunderhead can go back to base, spend up some of this gold as everybody's sitting at least 1,500 in pocket, and get themselves set up for the next Fire Giant.
Yeah, the only relic that's going to be down for the next team fight for Thunderhead is likely going to be Chekio's beads, who were forced out by French Emperor in that last engagement, where he goes in with a Sonic Boom, does about 10% of Chekio's HP. Chekio lands 1 auto attack, and it does 80% of French Emperor's. Here's some value, though. You're able to slam objectives. That is legitimately one of the strengths of Mercury, is his ability to decimate every single neutral objective. Crit very good in those scenarios. And, well, he's able to soul that one out. Now his team going to be benefiting from additional movement speed once they leave their base, but I don't think they're going to walk up to the Fire Giant proper. This one should just go to Thunderhead.
Mark, Marcus, and Chekio will be the first 3 in the pit, and there's no chance that ZZ get there now. They lost their only opportunity to get in when French Emperor went back to base. So Fire Giant goes down to Thunderhead. A near 15,000 gold swing for themselves up here in game number 2 as we approach the 28-minute mark. Experience doesn't really matter nearly as much now since most everybody has hit level 20 on the map, but that gold very relevant if you look across the boards here. Full items compared to still tier 1s for a lot of the guys over on the side of ZZ.
In spite of multiple attempts, Thunderhead have not been able to crack the base just yet. They've approached these Phoenixes time and time again, but they've all regenerated just about to full HP. Thunderhead slowly working their way forward with a 4-man core. Sirket going for the split push in mid.
Blink ult in by Ugly One. Doesn't really find a whole lot of value. Mecha Black soaking up damage from the ZZ team and from the Phoenix. But on that Amaterasu plus the Horus healing, Mecha Black should be able to get most of that HP back. Ray Shadow will be spotted out by French Emperor, hit with that major look. But Thunderhead, they're not giving up on this right side Phoenix just yet. Still, all ultimates available for the Order team.
All they have to do, Thunderhead that is survive the initial rotation of ultimates. If they can force Picarino's Thunderstorm and live, they're going to be just fine.
Maybe they can just get a pick on the Ugly One here. Grasp of Death is good. The Wild Hunt, not enough to get the kill. Instead, it'll be Mecha Black with the dazzling offense to take them down. Ult in by Mark, and under the right side, Phoenix Calvin doesn't have many options left to go. Ray Shadow catches him out and gets the beads from the support player. Calvin trying to make it back out, and he will do so just in time. But the right side Phoenix, the primary target of Thunderhead, finally falls down.
Yeah, and that Thunderstorm goes down as well. Picarino, no ultimate available, which means your best AoE defense tool has been lost. Ugly One, still 30 seconds of the grayscale, can only watch on.
Yeah, group of 5 versus 4 here. Ray Shadow low in health. Sonic Boom into the back, does find Marcus, gets the beads, but now French Emperor doesn't have a health bar left to his name. Mecha Black closes out the kill, and now makes it a 5 versus 3. Mid lane Phoenix goes down. Titan should surely fall right after in the 5v3 skills. Doesn't have an ultimate. Picarino, no ult. And Titan, basically no health. Skills goes down. Picarino low. Calvin doing whatever he can to keep Chekio out. But the Titan will fall down And game number 2 goes the way of Thunderhead.
Man, it's like a switch was flipped at the 13-minute mark or so. I don't remember the exact timing, but it was the aggression around the gold period for Thunderhead where they just walk into the back camps. They say, hey, this belongs to me now, as do your lives. And from there, Thunderhead kept up that aggression. They kept them on the back foot and made sure that balance was never regained, going towards these neutral objectives, forcing hard questions, and eventually transition into a win.
Well, we will be going into a game 3, our first game 3 of the day here between Thunderhead and ZINEDINE ZIDANE. We'll get back to you with that right after this break. Well, a nice Game 2 performance out of Thunderhead will get themselves a win in said game and tie up the set to now take us to a Game 3, where the loser of this game will go home, and the winner moves on to face the Radical Rodents in their final chance to make it to the EU SCC. And what a performance here out of Thunderhead here in game number 2. Ray Shadow basically getting free reign of the map, especially up against Picarino. Didn't really get to have a whole lot of fun on that Zeus this game.
Yeah, this one just felt like draft diff to me. It really was, man. I mean, we couldn't argue that, sure, you put yourself in a position to execute on draft diff by early aggression, that early lead established around the Gold Fury. But it just felt like once these compositions lined up in a 5 versus 5 engagement, Thunderheads was just head and shoulders above what we saw from ZZ.
Thunderhead, a very impressive performance out here. I mean, French Emperor didn't really get to do a whole lot in this game. This triple crit start ended up netting him like a kill and 2 assists for pretty much the entirety of the game, and I think that's all that French Emperor was able to get. I mean, we're pushing 20 minutes in. French Emperor wasn't able to get and utilize this crit build that he went into, and more than anything, I think Chekio just kind of got to play the game for free this entire time through. It felt like every time I looked into a team fight, Chekio was in the back line on this Cernunnos, just pelting people with auto attacks.
Yeah, I mean, Cern did get some buffs recently. Doesn't necessarily need to land the initial or the center of Bramble Blast. Gets a little bit more damage consistently. Now applies that cripple as well. That dash is starting to deal some damage. I don't know, man. Cern might be in a pretty good spot right now. Even the ultimate does a little bit more damage to waves, I believe. Now does damage to minions, so you can't even hide from it, like, you know, turn into a big pig and like hide behind your archers. That doesn't work anymore because your archers are dead. It kind of adds up to Cernunnos becoming not only strong in lane, but also in these team fights, and Chekio puts it on full display.
We see in that last little fight just kind of how really every fight was going for ZZ. They'd have good initiation to start from Ugly One and Picarino kind of comboing with each other, and then once those are done, Thunderhead are able to back themselves up, heal a little bit here with the help of its mark, with these Fire Giants, Mecha Black with their self-sustain, even Chekio with a little bit in his kit, if he can find some waves to do so. And then no anti-heal on the side of ZZ. I don't think a single item of anti-heal got picked up to try and counteract some of the sustain that was in the side of Thunderhead's draft here. 29,000 damage out of Chekio in this game. The next closest one being Picarino, just about 1,500 shy there. So Chekio really getting to have a field day on the Cernunnos and really showing off some of the strengths after his recent buffs.
Yeah, I think so. Look, game one, you could say that Thunderhead was like, they don't need to be concerned. The drafts look just fine. You're not really worried. It was mainly a throw on field that cost them that one. Game two, I think that ZZ's thinking to themselves, well, we won game one. We don't need to change up too much. Game three now, critical game three, loser goes home. You've got to start seeing some of these adaptations in P's and B's, man. We need to see some change-ups in these drafts, specifically for ZZ.
Well, we'll see what changes get made here for ZZ as we go into picks and bans for game number 3. And kind of talking about some of those adaptations here in Mifflin, where are some of the first things that you want to see ZZ kind of address here up against Thunderhead?
I think Thunderhead has kind of figured out the Zeus. I think that one's locked down. They know how to address that, so let's look towards something else in the mid lane. Generally, we see the majority of mid lane bans in that second phase of bans, so it's not as if ZZ is going to be particularly limited as long as they go towards that selection in the first 3. And in first pick position, they're going to get pick of the litter. Could be we find themselves, or they find themselves rather, in a position where they can pick up that Bastet, especially considering that hasn't been banned out just yet. But even then, an Agni, a Thoth, something like that would just go so far in these team fights, making it so much harder for Thunderhead to just go for this wildly aggressive style of play. When Thunderhead wins a team fight, it's because they lined up and they just walked at you, all right? You're not doing that through a hieroglyphic assault. You're not doing that when fire is actually falling from the sky.
Well, it's going to be a Fenrir, a Horus, and a Bellona banned away by ZZ. So their big adaptation right now is trying to deal with its mark in that support role, taking away this comfort pick. He's gotten to run it 2 games in a row, not going to let it be a third. Meanwhile, Bastet, Jormungandr, Tiamat on the side for Thunderhead, and Amaterasu first pick to pull that one away from solo laner Mecha Black. And Thunderhead will respond with this Kabrak, and we saw it kind of hinted at a little bit earlier on in the set where it did get a nice little priority pick there, and now we'll see it picked up first and couple it with an Osiris.
That's a lot of aggression early on, but you're not really using the flex potential too much. You could say, sure, both of these guys are capable, Kabrakan and Osiris, of going into the jungle, but it is more likely Kabrakan headed for support and then Osiris into the solo lane. Largest flex potential I'm willing to even consider is Kabrakan in the jungle. We'll get a better look at that as the rest of the draft rolls through. Meanwhile, ZZ have got themselves a difference here. They've definitely gone for a different style. A lot of auto attack, a lot of objective focus. Fafnir now going to have at minimum 3 targets that he can use Coerce on. Amaterasu, great auto attacker. Soul likely going towards mid, but could go towards the dual lane. If it does go mid, then the 3 targets thing I said makes sense. If it goes into the dual lane and we get like a standard mage, then it doesn't. So maybe I got ahead of myself, but I'm willing to bet this Soul's going to mid.
Well, so far it will not be a Zeus picked up here, at least by ZZ. They're not going to grab that one for now. We'll see if there's even any bans thrown that way. Instead, alongside that Cabrakan Osiris is going to be a Thoth that you were talking about earlier on. So that one does get picked up in the top 3, and that sends us now into the second wave of bans. Those are going to be Dodgy and Thor. Teams really do not want ZZ to have a Thor pick. They are just refusing to allow French Emperor to have this god.
Look, and if French Emperor's got a Thor, if it's that nasty that every team is like, we can't let it through, why aren't they taking it in the first 3, man? I don't know. I'm not falling for the hype, all right? Yeah, they're banning the Thor, but I haven't seen it yet.
We've only seen, what, like one Thor performance so far, and it did pretty good. Other than that, it's just been teams banning it away, like this Hoyi and Medusa from ZZ. Serket, the last pick up here by Thunderhead. And now that still leaves a little bit of flexibility open here between this Cabrakan and this Serket, at least. I think this kind of cements the fact that Osiris likely sliding itself over towards the solo lane. You're kind of scratching your head here a little bit, Mifflin, or maybe scratching your chin here at the very least. Nemesis in the Morgan by ZZ.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how ZZ's team fight is going to work, okay? So it's Amaterasu. She's in first. Dazzling offensive. Big stun. Let's say she gets 5 people. What are you doing? Like, what comes after that? Like a Dark Omen from downtown? Nemesis shreds defense from, like, one guy? Soul throws out the Supernova, maybe? Like, there's not a whole lot of follow-up on the initiation. There's a whole lot of people on your team that are going to sit around the edge of this team fight and say, hey, you better not step too far forward, or my Nemesis is going to come in from the edge and just dominate you. Hey, you don't know where this Morgan might be. She's going to be invisible, and then when she's not invisible, you're going to get one shot. It just feels like ZZ have put all their eggs in the basket of, okay, if we find a 3v1, we kill them instantly. Like, if we can get to a neutral objective, it's dead. But in a 5-on-5 engagement, this draft is going to struggle.
And they get Chekio Cerninos one more time after the near 30k player damage he puts up in game 2. He gets to run it back here in game number 3, coupling that with Cabrakan or Serket. Still not 100% sure where it's going here in game number 3. Loser goes home, winner goes on for one last chance to make it into the EUSCC. It's J-Mac, Mifflin, and Doug one final time here in this set. And it will be Mark on the Cabrakan support this time.
Okay, this is, I would say, par for the course for Thunderhead's allocation of their individual pieces. I'm still racking my brain what ZZ's path in is. And I suppose every one of their pieces is late game, right? Like, you want the Morgan to go late game so you get that one-shot potential. French Emperor is playing an auto-attack assassin, as he is apt to do. So you want that going relatively late game, or at least until that second tier where you get that Hydra's Lament, and then you've got a little bit of burst potential because Nemesis is one of the best auto-attack cancelers in the game. And then you've got scaling auto-attackers like skills on this Soul. But the ability to navigate the early game, I think, is going to struggle mightily, especially against the aggression that Thunderhead have drafted. And then teamfight cohesion as well. If I'm ZZ, I'm thinking to myself, we might have to fight early. And that might not be our strongest portion, but a lead might be necessary to make this draft easily executable.
Well, for now, ZZ in this dual lane, the Fafnir Soul combo, not something uncommon, and like you were highlighting in the picks and bans, objectives, they're going to quiver in their boots a little bit when this team walks up to them.
That's facts.
But we will see how the team fighting itself will go out here. For now, wave control does belong to Chekio and Mark on the side of Thunderhead. They'll get that first wave advantage. French Emperor, once again, going for another back Harpy invade here. Will only get one small Harpy for his trouble. But I guess the highlight is at least he doesn't lose out on his beads like Skills does. Turnaround Frenzy out of Calvin.
Good body
Pump
box.
the damage right back out at Mark. And Chekio holding a couple of those shots to make sure that Mark doesn't lose out on his life. A lot of action in duo, but no death just yet.
That's really good heads-up play from Chekio. Chekio has been impressing me a lot so far in this set, but being willing to walk into a fully stacked up passive Soul and say, hey, I know I'm getting hit for 90 per auto and I've only got like 650 HP, but I need to keep my support alive. Good wherewithal, good cognizant play from him, and still maintains pressure in the lane because there's plenty of sustain left in their pockets.
French Emperor's hovering around this left side jungle, could be going for another gank here into this duo lane, but beads are still up for Chekio. Mark, even though he gets stunned out, he'll be fine. Instead, it's just a Harpy invade by French Emperor. Ray Shadow, even standing by, we'll notice that one goes down, and we'll step over that ward as soon as it goes through. So that will mean that ZZ doesn't have to worry about this rotation from Cirquet. Maybe it's Marcus who needs to worry. Gets away from one stun. A bling in from French Emperor. All they need is a slice and dice to get this kill, or maybe just a dash and some extra in-hand damage from Picarino for ZZ to strike first.
Just gotta think he doesn't have evade and punish. Similarly, ZZ don't have a whole lot of chance on this side of the map. They may have knew Ray's Shadow was there, but object permanence clearly not the lock-in because they forgot immediately. He walks into the lane and shuts them down. French Emperor takes notice that the jungler's on the opposite side of the map and takes this time to strip away a speed.
Speed will get stolen, and Marcus will be a little too late to try and help secure that one. So a nice little pick there by French Emperor and Picarino in the mid. A good capitalization to take a buff out of the hands of the Thunderhead jungler. But Ray Shadow looking to return the favor here. A potential red buff invade, but maybe potential is the only word here. Does get stolen away, and since he doesn't have a speed, he'll go ahead and pick it up on his hasty retreat out.
I wonder if that pickup was intentional, if he was just like, I need to channel my jump, and the red buff just happened to fall at my feet. Luckily, he is successful on the invade itself. Will walk away and confirm his own with his team, but that fumble that Marcus took a little bit earlier is starting to reflect a bit here. Picarino, level 5.
Picarino, though, rooted out by the evade and punish, and a lot of damage from those hieroglyphic shots out of Marcus. Only level 4, though, on the Thoth. No ult available to the bird in the mid lane just yet. Mark goes in with a quick blink stun. Picarino stealths himself out after a hasty beads, and the mid laner for ZZ will make it out.
And not quite on the mark with the hieroglyphic assaults there. Afterward, I think maybe potential to find that kill. I believe Marcus probably did have the evade and punish available to him, but does not want to overcommit on the off chance that the jungler was hovering nearby. So Picarino loses out on his beads, and that's just it there. 1-0 stands the Morgan in mid up against the 0-1 Marcus. Maybe a half-level lead for Morgan as well, thanks to that kill. But poke potential now starting to favor this Thoth.
Mark walks in, finds a stun against Calvin. A lot of damage fired through, but an ultimate out of French Emperor. Ult from Marcus, now channeling a little bit late in the fight, and it will be jumped away by Calvin as Picarino picks up Mark. Ray Shadow late to the fight and will not be able to take part in this kill. Picarino throws a minion with that last breath just to spite more than anything else, but a kill nonetheless goes the way of ZZ.
All right, yeah, I couldn't tell you why he ulted the minion, honestly. Maybe thinking that it was a little bit later in the game and the minion would have died and spread that poison, but instead now it gets a little bit longer on that cooldown to the changeling, and Picarino will at least be able to reset himself back to neutral. ZZ doing a good job of establishing that pace throughout the early. I said earlier that it is likely going to be a game where they need to establish a lead, and so far have established a slight lead, about as large an early game gold lead as we've seen in any of these games individually, and experience likely around that same level as well. Picarino, though, I would like him to start making some rotations over towards this dual lane and limiting Chekio. Watching the minimap, I've noticed Chekio has been just about dashing aggressively on every single wave. Maybe an opportunity for somebody to rotate over and slow down this Cern.
And it's reflecting in the player damage too, almost 2,000 already by this Hunter, and that's usually damage numbers that's reserved for solo laners at this point in the game, because that's all that solo laners love doing, is slapping each other for minimal damage, but hey, I'm not dying, you're not dying, let's just keep having fun, go back, teleport in, and do it all over again. But so far that damage control has been in favor of Chekio on this Cernos. Already has that Crusher versus skills going for a Celestial Legion Helm right out the gate on this Soul. And you see that one kill reflected in the levels, about a half level up for the Thunderhead Hunter.
You know, speaking to your point, I'm convinced that solo laners don't deal damage, but we'll talk about it later because the French Emperor has just fallen, and Calvin, although a dragon, has got nobody nearby to help him out in this fight. Instead, sprays his stinky breath onto its mark for just a moment, and then disengages.
I didn't think about it until now, but this dragon form reminds me of Piff the Magic Dragon over anything else here, but
Who?
Maybe that Piff the Magic Dragon?
Could not tell you.
He's a comedian magician. He was on, what was it, America's Got Talent at one point there. But anyways, through here, Picarino holding their life out in the mid lane. Couldn't say the same for French Emperor early on. Surrounded by 3, and Thunderhead are able to close up that little bit of a gold lead that ZZ started with.
They have, and ZZ's got to be concerned about this one, man. Thunderhead are starting to get some of that scaling rolling. This Thoth is hitting some pretty significant power spikes. Picarino, he might find Mark.
Try and grab Mark here. Last breath
my
is good,
God.
but final judgment from Marcus. Even better. Still does lose out on the support, but Marcus able to make it a 1-for-1 trade. Maybe a little bit more here. French Emperor down to a quarter health after those shots.
God, it is so unfun to be the Morrigan up against a Thoth, right? Like the Morrigan and Habois are both gods that really need to be point blank to get the bulk of their damage off. The dark aspects from Morgan, the water hands from Habois, and those just going to be like from way downtown, just pew, 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 700 damage. You commit to the Circat change, you jump onto somebody's back. Well, that's pretty easy to line up a Thoth ultimate onto that one as well. Marcus, as long as he is playing safe, is going to be just that. Up against a Nemesis, up against the Morgan, not a whole lot of threat going to come this Thoth's way.
So far, aside from that first spill by Marcus, he has been able to keep a nice distance in these team fights. Supernova out of skills here. Chekio does have ult, but Calvin is waiting around the corner. Chekio hasn't spotted out just yet. Will walk up, and finally, maybe we see a punish onto the Cernos. Good damage through. Hammer will make sure to get the beads out of Chekio. A leap in by Calvin. Needs a little bit more damage, and that Scepter is slowly ticking away at Chekio's health bar. Is the Indra Scepter really going to be the thing that gets the kill out here? He needs one more hit, and it will find it. Calvin chases him to the depths for a kill.
Will Marcus get credit for this one? Calvin jumps over the wall. Maybe just going to go like into the fountain? No, he's wasting time. That's probably best case. Does he no, he doesn't survive. There's 0%.
There's no shot he gets a kill here onto Marcus and turns this around on his own.
No.
One stun connects. Marcus is here, eating a lot of damage from the breath. Marcus misses that third shot, and Calvin should be dead here now that it's de-transformed. Wasting a little bit of time, but giving kill over to Marcus, probably not the best call.
I'm not sure. I mean, sure, the bounty for Fafnir was a little bit higher because he just got the solo kill on the Chekio, but Marcus missed out on like a wave and a half in mid. That was a lot of time this Fafnir just wasted. And that farm did go over to its Mark, who was behind. There's a lot of calculus here I'm not willing to do, but I would argue that that play that Calvin made was probably best line in the situation he was in.
So far, Thunderhead are able to keep themselves alive here. ZZ does still have a very small gold lead, even despite these kills going towards Thunderhead in these last couple of fights. Ray Shadow, Mecha Black, and Mark, though, want to stop this blue buff from going down. Everyone in French Emperor will be able to secure it.
Tough.
And the wall just off the mark by its Mark here on the Kraken.
I like that. That's good.
I literally didn't even try and make a pun there. I noticed it right after I said it, but nice little disengage by ZZ as they're able to secure their buff and their lives. Ray Shadow gets an ultimate onto Picarino, and then that's the end of that.
Yeah, Picarino does lose the beads, and he has lost his lead as well. Marcus now one level up over the Morgan in mid. Got to think that the target's going to become pretty clear in the next couple of fights. Once Ray Shadow gets that ultimate back and available, probably going to loop his way all the way back towards mid and try again to shut him down. Calvin tasted blood in the long lane a moment ago. Seems like he's got a taste for it now, looking towards Chekio, who's decided to play a little bit safer. One gank comes Chekio's way, he immediately makes the adaptation. No longer is he dashing aggressively on every wave, despite still maintaining a lead in the lane. 11 to the 10 of Skills' Soul.
Maybe a little happier that the Scepter isn't around the waist of Calvin this time to kind of grant Calvin almost a free kill. I mean, sure, he had to dive all the way into the base and eventually go down, but maybe glad that he doesn't have that free poke going back his way. Both hunters will return to base. Skills picks up a Ring of Hekate's second item, an item that was basically the #1 go-to for a lot of these magical hunters. Will be the second pickup now for the Soul. Chekio gets their lifesteal online by grabbing that Aussie. Nothing too out of the ordinary there for either of these gods.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if Skills decides to go towards this new age build of high power stacking items into a nimble rod to transition that into attack speed, or if he's going to maintain the ring style build from here on out. I would argue Ring of Hekate essentially going to be core, though. Regardless, you want that sustain.
Marcus charging up that final judgment, but backing away as soon as Picarino shows up. Picarino down to have health jumping in. Mark is the one in danger. Final judgment clips through, doesn't find anybody. It's Mark will go down. Ray Shadow short to follow after, and Marcus can only stand by in the tier 1 tower as his teammates are slowly crumbling away. Evade and punish, not quite enough to finish the kill on the French Emperor. But Ugly One is not going to give up this kill. They're going to dive in the tier 1 tower and pick up a double.
Yeah, Mecha Black was in the shop. Sometimes you're just backing, you get picked out. That man was surfing through the catalog, seeing what the new deals are on Rada to Hooties. It just falls down. That's the easiest kill Ugly One has ever gotten for himself. And ZZ forces an engagement where Thunderhead are essentially artificially taking 3v1s or 2v1s. This might be the most interesting Pyromancer I've ever seen, because I really thought both of them were going to die, but French Emperor and his boy Picarino will survive this time around, and ZZ reestablished themselves a lead, and it's the largest one we've seen so far.
That was a very close Pyromancer. I was sure somebody was going to go down there, but instead it will be ZZ getting the objective, getting out with all of their lives in that fight, picking up, what was it, like 3 picks in the midst of that team fight as well here, and establishing that early 2,000 gold lead. 12 minutes in, 7-4, ZZ. The first time that ZZ has actually really had a lead for themselves in one of these games. Typically, it's been Thunderhead with the lead.
Hey, game 1. Did you forget, man? They had the lead in the early for like, what was it, like 5K, and then they didn't like do much afterward? Or am I making that up?
No, it was the other way around. It was Thunderhead had the lead, and then ZZ took it away from them there.
You're right, man.
ZZ get these mid camps, get a little bit of vision there. Thanks to the help of that Eye of the Jungle, not a French Emperor. It's Mark now down a level, and has gone for a double aura early. Heartward and Sovereignty picked up.
Yeah, this is a classic support build. They're going to get a lot of defense for the entire team, and those neutral objectives burn quickly. We knew that was going to happen with this style of draft, and ZZ seems to have known it as well. There's that early lead established. So they get that lead, and now they can start leveraging the strengths of this composition. Thunderhead, I think, all they needed to do throughout the early was not die. They just needed to get to that team fight phase, which is traditionally Thunderhead's style. They love going for those slower paced games, but instead they got dragged into the pace of ZZ, who was able to now start doing whatever it is that they want on the map. De-seeking the neutral objectives means that there's going to be no opportunity for Thunderhead to split the map on subsequent objectives. Next Pyromancer are going to be the POI, I believe, we see grouped up on, and Thunderhead will have had some time to scale by then and still have got pretty close margins on the experience and some leads in individual roles. But ZZ now in the driver's seat.
So far, Skills is answering at least a part of your question, and will be some additional attack speed out of this Soul, a second ring picked up. Though still plenty of time to slot in a Rod of Tahuti, that nimble Rod of Tahuti that you were talking about a little bit there, if they like to go out maybe 4th item. For now, it will just be the additional raw attack speed that ring provides. Skills will grab the Oracle Harpies, just get some extra XP, and keep ZINEDINE in the driver's seat so far here in game number 3. And kind of going back over towards that team fight around that mid-camp right before that Pyromancer went down, a lot of it felt like for ZINEDINE, it came off the back of they just didn't allow Marcus to be a part of those fights.
No, I mean, Marcus' positioning was good in the fight in that he was protecting himself. Thoth is always looking out for numero uno, needs to be far away from the engagement, so he's standing inside the tier 1 mid tower, and then immediately ZZ says, okay, well, we're not diving the tower. Who else can we dive? They go into the back camps of Thunderhead, and once Marcus had already missed out on that ultimate, not much for him to do after that. Just hovers in his mid tower and says, man, I sure hope my teammates don't die, and he was, well, I guess disappointed is the right word.
Yeah, as 3 went down during that fight. Telkine's ring now for Skills finishing up that 3rd item. French Emperor picks up an Erendite in the 3rd slot. It feels like it's been a while since we've seen Erendite. It felt like Serrated Edge was pretty much the go-to 3rd, 4th item into that build. Haven't really seen this item nearly as much, Mifflin.
Yeah, I mean, Nemesis gets the double dip from Erendite in that once you use that ultimate, you get additional movement speed. I'm talking about the Erendite passive right there. See how I tricked a lot of people. It's also her own ultimate that gives her additional movement speed in the when you steal it away from your opposition, you slow them down. So now once French Emperor chooses a target, they're stuck with them.
Be zooming just like Skills is away from its mark here. Use the Saprite and a Supernova, but ZZ is going to pull the Fire Charge on the opposite side. And just as quickly as they pull it, they go ahead and disengage from it. Too many members of Thunderhead spotted them doing it, and that was just enough to scare them away. Mark will be slow immune with that first ability popped up. Steals away one offering. Skills doesn't want to let that one go for free, but there's not much that they can do now that their ult is already down.
That was a very high commitment heat check from the Fafnir there. Generally, when you pull out Gold Furies or Fire Giants in a situation like that, you want to hold on
Marcus
to your cooldown.
Trying to hold out for numero uno here, but that dazzling offensive gives Ugly One more than enough distance to cover and chase out that evade and punish. Chekio gets hit by that Nemesis ult, pops his own ultimate to try and keep himself alive here, but there's too much commitment on the side of ZZ. They will take down the Hunter, they'll take down the mid laner, and get a nice 2 picks for themselves, maybe even add a tower to that repertoire.
Man, I was worried about ZZ's ability to team fight, right? The P's and B's, I said, their 5-on-5 engagement is not going to be as strong. It's not going to be as easy to execute on. It simply hasn't happened. We're 16.5 minutes in, and ZZ's like 5-on-2, 5-on-1, 5-on-3. I think the closest fight we saw was a 5-on-4, but that 4th member of Thunderhead showed up after like 2 people had already died, and ZZ are benefiting from it mightily. 2 picks for free, Pyromancer, that one's going to go down incredibly fast, and, well, Mecha Black, it's Mark, hovering a little bit close by, No dazzling offensive available to Ugly One, so they get to walk out this time around. ZZ, now's the time. I think they can regroup and force a team fight, force a 5-on-5, and despite having the relatively weaker draft, the deficit that they've created, the lead that they've established for themselves, should make up for that inherent weakness.
Well, maybe waiting for Calvin to get that relic, that frenzy back online. Draconic Transformation is up now, and they do have a Shogun's Kasari out of Ugly One, so couple that with this Soul, with this Amaterasu, able to help in shredding out away some of these objectives. Fire Giant could easily be on the menu for ZZ, but for now, they're more concerned with getting some of their additional farm across the board out. Skills goes back to the dual lane and works on a third ring, so still no Nimble Ratatouille to be picked up by this Soul. We'll see if that ends up being the last item. But Calvin going for a Spirit Robe, second slot here right after the Gauntlet of Thieves, and now going towards some flat pen as well.
That means this Fafnir's feeling himself. If he's going towards damage, that's the 408 play. The awesome Jake. My man wants to be a damage dealer, a number doer. And, well, once Calvin finishes that one up, he certainly will be. ZZ established defensive positioning around the Oni Fury, and Thunderhead, if they want to show up, it's going to have to be pretty quick.
I want to heat check this Fury a little bit quicker, Thunderhead, because it's going down quickly to just the damage of Skills and Calvin out here. Ultimate in the backline, Ray Shadow has to dash himself out. Picarino will chase them out on this Circuit, gets the last breath to get the beads from the jungler. Transformation of Calvin, and a pick by Ugly One and Skills, taking down both Marcus and its Mark. Chekio running away from Ugly One, but Picarino is back in the back line, finds a pick. Mecha Black over the wall just to convert their own safety, and ZZ picks up 3.
The fight may have erupted around the Oni Fury itself, but it was never over the Fury. 18.5 minutes in, Fire Giant is on the menu, and ZZ are incredibly healthy. Only Ray Shadow right now in range to put up any sort of defense, and not exactly the tankiest with only 2 defense items, 1 dedicated defense item for this Circuit. Mecha Black has made the rotation in with Teleport, but that's Osiris. It's just steals.
Ray Shadow goes in, and Ray Shadow goes down, as well does the Fire Giant, ZINEDINE in complete control of this mid-late game. Mecha Black, Tier 1 tower is not enough safety for you, my friend. No ultimate to your name, and no life. Picarino picks up the double kill, a Fire Giant, and now Tier 1 tower on right. And they should be able to make quick work of this Tier 2.
They might even push in towards the Phoenix, man. They're playing with a massive lead. Everyone's relatively sustained up. French Emperor has got some more safety in his kit thanks to that third ability. Fire Giant going to top him up as well. Yeah, I agree. This is the right call. Walk in.
Calvin goes in to soak up the damage from the Phoenix, at least for now. Picarino goes to the back line to try and find Marcus. Final Judgment, though, is just off the mark. Doesn't find that kill against Picarino. Transforms into the Circuit to jump themselves on out. And not enough damage thrown towards that Phoenix. Hieroglyphic Assault just off the mark. A dash in by Ugly One to bail out for Picarino, and the mid laner for ZZ should make it out. Does Ugly One have that same opportunity? Maybe just a bait back in. Supernova doesn't find a whole lot of value, but Ray Shadow's caught in the middle, stunned out and burned away. Picarino with a third kill now on a rampage of his own. French Emperor trades life for 1. Skills takes out its Mark. In a fight that Thunderhead tried to start back up, they end up losing.
Thunderhead still have 2 members hovering nearby, and they're walking forward. Chekio and Mecha Black might want the action now. 3 members of ZINEDINE ZIDANE. That's the first time I've said it this entire set.
That is true.
Still hovering nearby, but not willing to step forward. I am surprised that Phoenix survives that fight, considering Picarino had the entirety of the living members of Thunderhead staring at him like in their own base, but French Emperor not willing to step forward. Skills, not a whole lot of damage onto the objective itself, probably because he doesn't have a whole lot of penetration in his build just yet. So they walk away. It's not as if they make a loss, though. Only 1 Fire Giant loss, and it's on your Nemesis. Not exactly the most important member to have it at this portion of the game. You want to keep that on your tanks and your objective burners, and they've all still got it. I think ZZ can go ahead and regroup, work through the left side of the map, and go for the most important Phoenix. The left Phoenix, the one furthest from the Fire Giant, the one that's hardest to defend those fire mini waves if you want to show up to the Fire Giant on respawn.
Might as well make a nice clean sweep of some of these towers out here. 2 in the left, 1 in the mid for ZZ to still shred away. 1.5 minutes left on their Fire Giant. Chekio gets spotted out by Calvin. You can see some of the damage now that the Spear of Desolation Fafnir is online, what it can do just to Chekio alone. But it will be a small group up here by ZZ towards the left. French Emperor and Ugly One on the opposite side of the map, but they're not necessary to take out this barely standing tier 1 tower. Only a couple of autos necessary from skills to drop that one out. Picorino with their build out here, a little bit of flat pen, a Polynomicon, which should help in dealing some extra damage to these towers. You can see 325 on a proc there. You can only imagine what it might do to one of these enemy gods.
Yeah, skills also forgoes finishing off that ring. I thought it was going to be a demonic grip early on, would have gotten him a lot more penetration. Instead, man had heavy pockets when he got back to base, so he just straight up bought Ratatouille. And for those of you old heads in the chat, you're thinking to yourself, well, Ratatouille's still no pen in the build. Incorrect! Here in Season 9, now we've got 10% pen from Ratatouille. It's not the most, but it'll certainly help out on these neutral objectives and on finishing off some of these tanks.
Starting up towards the left side, Phoenix. All 3 towers stripped away as French Emperor took that mid-tier 2 by themselves. And they'll score off in a 1v1 versus Ray Shadow, but with 3 levels up on a Nemesis, even with all that defense, might be difficult for Ray Shadow to take this 1v1. A very slow approach here by ZZ, not making a full commit just yet, waiting for that minion wave to come in before they strike.
Yeah, now French Emperor has pushed himself into mid. He's controlling Ray Shadow, who's going to be one of the best divers on the left side of the map, creating space for just this. Calvin in first.
Draconic Transformation will catch Mecha Black for only a moment. Skills makes it out of those Kabrakan walls with some extra help here. Phoenix not taking a whole lot of damage. It's mostly been Skills who's been eating that one up. Ugly One is caught in the middle of the base and will dash themselves out. So quick disengage from the left side Phoenix. Now that that Fire Giant buff has worn off, ZZ not willing to make a commit to any more of these structures.
That was attack on not just 2 fronts, J-Mac. There was a siege on all 3 lanes. Only one was led by minions. Only minion wave on the right was left uncontested by Thunderhead. So right side Phoenix dropped to just over 50% HP. ZZ, though, with no Fire Giant, will not step up and make use of that weakened bird. Instead, reset, pick up the Pyromancer, and get ready for this next Fire Giant. Last time around, I thought Thunderhead would not step up. There was not really an opportunity. This time around, I think it's time. You've got a level 18 Thoth who's hit some pretty significant power spikes. Ray Shadow's a little bit tankier. Mecha Black a little bit tankier now as well, so the front line can actually survive some of this damage from ZZ. But the lead is still massive. Experience and gold. It's not going to be easy. And Thunderhead, well, they were able to maintain the base last time. They're going to go ahead and try and do it yet again. ZZ pick up the Fire Giant with 0 contest from the opposition. And Thunderhead maintained their own base for just a moment longer. Gotta think that this is exactly what you're going to do. Another 4-1 split. French Emperor down the center of the map going to try and control Ray Shadow and make sure that he isn't able to rotate in and put pressure onto Picorino, put pressure onto Skills. French Emperor necessarily, or does not necessarily rather, have to do anything. He just needs to be a body in the mid. If he gets the kill, if he wins the 1v1, amazing. That's perfect. But even in just taking and distracting Ray Shadow from the team fight itself, I think that is very high value.
Picorino sneaking over towards this left side with Ugly One to make it a 2v1 under this Phoenix, and that one is already down to half health. French Emperor chipping away at it on this Nemesis and will drop the first bird with basically no fight back. It was only Ray Shadow there to defend for the time, and losing half their health, and all the Phoenix has now opened up the map here for ZZ. 3 rotating with 4th in the wings with Picorino on this right side. French Emperor still sticking around this mid lane.
He is. Just trying to push some minion waves into that base, and again, distract Ray Shadow. Make sure that it isn't a 5-on-5 engagement. ZZ doing a great job of dictating the pace of this siege.
Calvin does take a bit of poke out here, goes in and roots people in place with that entangling wings, and the Phoenix is going down quickly, and so is Mecha Black's health bar. Supernova, the final bit of damage for Skills to take them out. Ray Shadow has to dash away. Chekio tries to get into the back line to end his fight, but he's going to be the one who loses out on the fight of his own. French Emperor gets Ray Shadow. It's Mark, the last one alive, and for only a moment longer, ZINEDINE ZIDANE bring it back here in Game 2 and Game 3 to get the win.
Game 1, a back-and-forth battle. Game 2, one-sided obliteration. Game 3, more of the same. Another destruction, one-sided, 22-5, favoring ZZ. Wild stuff, man. I'll keep it real. I really did not think ZZ was going to be able to do it with that draft, but that early lead into objective-focused play was just too quick, and there was no answer from Thunderhead.
I mean, that was the thing that we talked all about with that picks and bans was, can they get the picks? Can they get the objectives? The answer to that was yes, but they got that and more with these team fights. ZZ with the win here will send us to a break. We'll come back to break down that set.
Sing for me sweet lullabies. Bright nights of everlasting darksome days. Bright nights and wearing the stain you made on me. And I wait and I wait and I wait and I wait for the bright nights to lead my way through the maze.
Hello and welcome back to the Smite Challenger Circuit Qualifiers. Zinedine Zidane with a nice 2-1 win. They're going to move themselves on into the bracket for one more chance to make it to the EUSCC. But we're going to take a brief moment here, or at least time, to talk to you guys about something very important. You know, the SEC is great. We love everything that's been coming from these guys. But as far as the SPL is concerned, there's one thing that is going to be going away, and that's going to be the Season 8 merch. But it's okay, there's good news. You still have 2 more days to pick up your chance to get some of the Season 8 SPL merch. Go to shop.smiteproleague.com, because after tomorrow, you're not going to be able to get your hands on it anymore. No more Season 8 jerseys, no more Season 8 hoodies and t-shirts, hats, joggers, whatever else we have left in there. It's going to be gone. I'm just going to say it now. I haven't seen anything for Season 9, so this could be your last opportunity to get any kind of Smite Pro League merchandise. So go over to shop.smiteproleague.com right now and pick up that merch that you've been waiting on this entire time. Don't wait for that tax refund to come in. Do it now. Be irresponsible and pick up now.
You got a refund?
I don't actually know. I haven't done mine yet.
Okay, well, make sure you guys get on your taxes.
Do that first. Actually, you should probably do that if you haven't already. But they'll also go over and make sure to pick up your Season 8 merch, because these are your last 2 days to get your hands on it.
I didn't get a refund. They took mine.
They took your refund away.
No, not the refund. They took my money.
Oh, they took everything away. I'm so sorry for you here, Mifflin. Zinedine Zidane, though, they take away a win from Thunderhead here in game number 3. That probably one that Thunderhead never even really had. Zinedine, with this draft, as you talked about, kind of in the P's and B's, should have just been, we get a pick, we get objectives, that's all cool. But when it came down to these late game team fights, this lead that they had from Mifflin was just insurmountable.
Yeah, I would argue we really didn't get an opportunity to see too many 5-on-5 engagements. It was always a 1v1, a 2v2, a 2v1, or in this case, a 3v1. Immediately into a 3v1 again. What is this? Another 3v1? That's crazy, man. ZZ were able to just pick their fights very well throughout the early, and then they transition it into objective-based play. I was concerned initially about their ability to 5-on-5 engagement. They essentially say, through actions, not words, Mifflin, Mifflin, Mifflin. Worry not, my guy. We simply will not approach a 5-on-5 engagement. Also, shouts Mecha Black for opening the shop. That takes I don't know, a lot of bravery, I suppose, and unfortunately he was not rewarded for it.
Yeah, the conveyor belt in the mid lane is really kind of what started this downward spiral for Thunderhead in this third game. This last little team fight started back up by Thunderhead. They had perfect re-engage opportunity, and then Zinedine turns that all on its head. Skills of the great Supernova during that last fight to separate everything and just complete and utter control from that point on. ZZ, Zinedine Zidane, I'll say their names properly for you one last time here, will move themselves on in the bracket for one last chance at the only 2 spots remaining here in the EUSCC.
And unfortunately for the fans of Thunderhead at home, that will spell the end of their journey here throughout the bracket. But maybe not the end of their journey as a team. SOC still exists. You can jump down a level.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ASCC, but still that opportunity to potentially
there's
fight
an S and
back
a C.
in it. Yeah, there is an S and a C. Unfortunately, there's an O in there, meaning you didn't get your you get zero set wins to make it to the SCC here, unfortunately, for these guys. But that means with a win here by ZZ, they'll move on to face the Radical Rodent. So we got RR and ZZ in our first qualifier round. At the end of here, Ogie Bogey's waiting on the victor of our next set. Just F6 and Peace and Love will have to square off one final time to see who of them is going to be going home. Will it be the scrim partners of Thunderhead? Just F6 and Thunderhead have been playing against each other for a couple of years here. Or will it be Peace and Love going home? You'll have to stick around after this to find out which of those is going to be, though.
You know, I'm looking at the Peace and Love roster, man, and I got to give a shout out to just one guy. There's a dude on that team named Steefy. I like that.
Well, there you go. You got the Mifflin seal of approval there, Steefy. We'll see if Steefy and the boys of Peace and Love can get a win, or is it just F6 who'll move on the bracket? Stick around. After a few more minutes, we'll be back to bring you that set.
Holy shit! It's Smite's birthday! I have to get everyone a card.
Oh, come on. Again? Tarot time!